My brother stole my girlfriend and my promotion, then I got the call that changed everything. The knife twisted deeper when Derek flashed that smug smile across the dinner table at Romano's, the same restaurant where I'd planned to propose to Emma just 2 weeks earlier. The engagement ring was still hidden in my bedroom drawer, a $8,000 reminder of how spectacularly wrong everything had gone. "Better man won," my brother said, cutting into his perfectly cooked steak with the same precision he'd used to slice through my life. His arm was draped possessively around Emma's shoulders, and she, my girlfriend of 3 years, couldn't even look me in the eye. 7 days. That's how long it had taken for my entire world to collapse. 7 days since Derek had walked into the CEO's office and somehow convinced Mr. Harrison to give him the regional manager position that was rightfully mine. 7 days since Emma had shown up at my apartment with tears in her eyes and a speech about following her heart. "Ryan," my mother said, her voice carrying that familiar tone of disappointment that had followed me since childhood, "you should be happy for your brother. He's worked so hard for this promotion." Worked hard. Derek, who had joined the company 18 months ago through pure nepotism, our uncle, sat on the board, while I had been grinding for 5 years, building client relationships, exceeding every quota, and staying late to clean up other people's mistakes. "Of course," I said, forcing a smile that felt like swallowing glass. "Congratulations, Derek. You deserve everything that's coming to you." He raised his wine glass, expensive Bordeaux that he could now afford with his new $140,000 salary, to the better man winning. He toasted, his eyes never leaving mine. The table erupted in forced laughter and congratulations. Emma finally looked at me, and for a split second, I saw something that might have been regret flash across her face, but then Derek's hand moved to her knee, and whatever remorse she'd felt vanished. I excused myself to the bathroom, not because I needed to use it, but because I needed 60 seconds to collect myself before I said something that would destroy what was left of my family relationships. Standing in front of the mirror, I stared at my reflection, still in my work clothes from another 12-hour day, my tie slightly loosened, exhaustion etched around my eyes. 32 years old, and I was watching my younger brother claim everything I'd worked for while being celebrated for it. The golden boy who could do no wrong, taking what belonged to me with a smile and a handshake. I returned to the table, finished my meal in silence, and drove home to my empty apartment. The silence was deafening. No Emma humming in the kitchen while she made her terrible coffee. No text messages about weekend plans. Just me, 4 walls, and the crushing weight of being outmaneuvered by someone who had never earned anything in his life. For the next 2 weeks, I buried myself in work. If Derek thought he could waltz in and take over my territory, he was about to learn what real work looked like. I arrived at the office at 6 a.m. and left after 8 p.m. I double-checked every report, followed up on every lead, and made sure my performance was absolutely flawless. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was now working harder than ever for a company that had just passed me over for promotion, but pride is a strange thing. It makes you want to prove your worth even to people who have already shown they don't value it. Derek, meanwhile, was settling into his new role with the confidence of someone who had never faced real adversity. He'd moved into the corner office, the one I'd been promised for 2 years, and decorated it with expensive art and a putting green. His assistant brought him coffee in actual china cups while the rest of us used the break room machine. Emma had apparently moved in with him already. I knew this because Janet from accounting had mentioned seeing them at IKEA, picking out furniture for their new place. The knife twisted a little deeper. It was a Thursday morning, 2 weeks after the dinner from hell, when everything changed. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my desk phone rang. The caller ID showed an extension I recognized but rarely saw, Mr. Harrison's direct line. "Ryan, could you come to my office, please, and bring the financial reports from the Denver project?" The Denver project. That was Derek's baby, his first major assignment as regional manager, a $2.4 million contract with a manufacturing company that he'd supposedly landed through his innovative approach to client relations. I gathered the files and walked to the executive floor, my mind racing through possibilities. Maybe Mr. Harrison wanted to discuss expanding the Denver model to other regions. Maybe Derek had recommended me for a different position. Maybe this was finally my chance to prove that the promotion decision had been a mistake. Mr. Harrison's secretary, Margaret, looked up as I approached. Her usually warm smile was replaced by a professional mask that immediately put me on edge. "He's waiting for you," she said quietly. "Go right in." I knocked and entered to find Mr. Harrison behind his massive oak desk, but he wasn't alone. Two people in dark suits sat across from him, a woman with sharp eyes and a man taking notes on a tablet. Law enforcement. I'd seen enough crime shows to recognize the type. Ryan, thank you for coming. Please, have a seat. Mr. Harrison's voice was strained, like he'd been having difficult conversations all morning. These are Special Agents Morrison and Torres from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. FBI, Financial Crimes. My mouth went dry as I sat down, placing the Denver project files on the coffee table between us. Mr. Walsh, Agent Morrison began, her voice crisp and professional. We're investigating irregularities in several recent contracts, including the Denver manufacturing deal. We understand you've been involved in the preliminary financial reviews for these projects. Yes, ma'am, I handled the initial budget assessments and compliance checks for all major contracts. And in your professional opinion, Agent Torres interjected, did you notice anything unusual about the Denver project's financial structure? I thought back to the reports I'd filed 3 weeks ago, before Derek's promotion, before the world went sideways. Actually, yes, there were some discrepancies in the payment schedules and several vendor invoices that didn't match our standard procurement procedures. The agents exchanged glances. Agent Morrison leaned forward. Can you be more specific? I opened the Denver file and spread the documents across the table. Here, I said, pointing to a series of invoices. These 3 vendors, Pinnacle Solutions, Advanced Logistics, and Premier Consulting, they're all billing for overlapping services, and their payment routing goes through accounts I don't recognize in our standard system. Those are shell companies, Agent Torres said bluntly, all 3 of them, registered to fake addresses and designed to siphon money from legitimate contracts. My blood turned to ice as the implications hit me. You're saying someone was embezzling through the Denver project? We're saying someone has been embezzling through multiple projects over the past 18 months, Agent Morrison replied, to the tune of approximately $1.3 million. 18 months, that's exactly when Derek had joined the company. The scheme was sophisticated, Agent Torres continued. Whoever orchestrated this knew our internal systems well enough to create fake vendors, forge approval signatures, and route payments through accounts designed to look legitimate at first glance. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. Ryan, I need to ask you directly, did you have any involvement in creating these vendor relationships or approving these payments? No, sir, absolutely not. My voice was stronger than I felt. I only handled the initial assessments. All vendor approvals and final payment authorizations go through the regional manager level. The silence in the room was deafening. Agent Morrison was studying my face like she was reading a book, while Agent Torres made notes on his tablet. Mr. Walsh, Agent Morrison finally said, we've been monitoring this investigation for 6 months. We have bank records, email communications, and digital forensics that paint a very clear picture of who was orchestrating this scheme. She opened a folder and spread several documents across the table, bank statements, email printouts, and what looked like surveillance photos. The primary suspect has been using his position to create fraudulent contracts, establish shell companies, and systematically steal from the company while maintaining the appearance of legitimate business operations. I stared at the documents, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. One of the email printouts showed a conversation between Derek and someone named Mike Torres discussing payment schedules for the consulting arrangement. The timestamp was from last month. We've been building our case carefully, Agent Torres added, but we needed to eliminate other potential suspects and gather statements from employees who had access to the financial systems. Mr. Harrison rubbed his temples. Ryan, I owe you an apology. When the FBI first approached us 6 months ago, Derek suggested that we needed to be careful about who had access to sensitive financial information. He specifically mentioned that junior employees might not understand the complexities of large-scale contracts. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. Derek hadn't just stolen my promotion, he'd used his new position to cover his tracks while simultaneously making me look like a potential suspect. There's more, Agent Morrison said, pulling out another set of documents. We have evidence that the suspect has been using company resources for personal expenses, luxury purchases, vacation rentals, expensive dinners, all billed to fictitious project accounts. She showed me a credit card statement with charges I recognized, Romano's restaurant from 2 weeks ago, a jewelry store purchase for $3,200 on the same day Derek and Emma had announced their engagement, and a weekend getaway to the Bahamas last month. He's been living beyond his means, Agent Torres explained, and using the company as his personal bank account. My phone buzzed with a text message. Derek, family dinner Sunday at Mom's. Bring your appetite for humble pie. I showed the message to Agent Morrison. She actually smiled, the first genuine expression I'd seen from her. Mr. Walsh, we're going to need your full cooperation over the next few days. We'll be executing search warrants and making arrests, but we want to ensure we have all the evidence properly documented. Of course, I said. Anything you need. Mr. Harrison leaned back in his chair, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour. Ryan, I also need to discuss your employment situation. Given what we've learned about Derek's activities, the regional manager position is obviously going to be vacant very soon. 3 days later, I was sitting in my newly assigned corner office, Derek's former office, when Margaret knocked on my door. Ryan, there are some people here to see Derek, but he's not available. Should I send them to you? Through my window, I could see Derek being escorted across the parking lot in handcuffs, flanked by FBI agents. A small crowd of employees had gathered to watch, their faces a mixture of shock and fascination. Who's asking for him? I said. His girlfriend, Emma something. She looks very upset. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Tell her Derek is in a meeting and can't be disturbed. Suggest she try calling him later. That evening, I was cleaning out Derek's desk when I found something that made me laugh out loud. A business card for a jewelry store with a handwritten note on the back. Thanks for the referral. The ring is perfect for Emma. Mike Torres. The same name from the email printouts. Derek had apparently used his embezzled money to buy Emma an engagement ring through one of his fake business contacts. My phone rang. Emma's name appeared on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Ryan, I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but something's happened to Derek. He's not answering his phone, and there were police cars at his office building. I'm scared. Can you please call me back? I deleted the message and poured myself a glass of whiskey. The next morning's newspaper featured a front-page story, local executive arrested in multi-million embezzlement scheme. Derek's corporate headshot stared back at me from beneath the headline, his confident smile now looking more like a smirk of arrogance. The article detailed how Derek Walsh, 29, had been arrested on charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement. It mentioned that he had used his position as regional manager to orchestrate an elaborate scheme involving fake vendors and fraudulent contracts. The estimated total loss to the company was $1.3 million. At the bottom of the article, there was a small paragraph about the investigation. The scheme was uncovered through the diligent work of company financial analyst Ryan Walsh, whose detailed reporting of irregularities led to the FBI investigation. My mother called at 7:15 a.m. Ryan, I don't understand what's happening. Derek's been arrested, and the news is saying terrible things. This has to be a mistake. Mom, I said gently. It's not a mistake. Derek has been stealing money from the company for over a year. Silence, then, but he was so successful. The promotion, the new salary. The promotion he got by making me look incompetent. The salary he was supplementing with stolen money. The success that was built on fraud. More silence. What about Emma? She called me crying, saying she doesn't understand what's happening. I thought about Emma, probably sitting in the apartment Derek had furnished with embezzled money, wearing an engagement ring bought with stolen funds, wondering how her perfect life had crumbled overnight. That's not my problem anymore, Mom. 2 weeks later, I was working late in my office when security called. Mr. Walsh, there's a woman here asking to see you. Says her name is Emma. I found her in the lobby, looking smaller than I remembered. Her eyes were red from crying, and she was clutching a tissue like a lifeline. Ryan, she said as I approached. Thank you for seeing me. What do you want, Emma? I needed to apologize. And to ask, did you know? When we were at dinner that night, did you know Derek was stealing? No. But I knew he was lying about something. Derek has always been a liar, Emma. The only difference is now he got caught. She nodded, tears starting to flow again. I've been so stupid. I thought he was this successful, confident man who could give me everything I wanted. And you were just what? Honest? Hardworking? Boring? I was going to say real, she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment, remembering how much I'd loved her, how devastated I'd been when she chose Derek, how I'd planned to propose. Emma, Derek didn't steal you from me. You chose him. You looked at both of us and decided you wanted the flashy guy with the corner office and the expensive dinners. That's who you are, and that's okay. But don't pretend this is about making a mistake. This is about consequences. I turned to walk away, then stopped. Oh, and Emma? You might want to return that engagement ring. It was bought with stolen money. The FBI will probably want it back as evidence. 6 months later, Derek was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $1.3 million in restitution. The judge noted that his betrayal of trust and elaborate deception warranted the maximum sentence under the guidelines. I was promoted to regional director, a position higher than the one Derek had stolen from me. My new salary was $180,000, plus bonuses based on legitimate performance metrics. Emma moved back to her hometown. I heard through mutual friends that she was working at her father's insurance agency and dating a guy who managed a local car dealership. Simple, honest work with honest people. My mother finally apologized, not for choosing Derek over me, but for not seeing who he really was. I always thought he was the successful one, she admitted. I didn't realize that success built on lies isn't success at all. Last month, I received a letter from Derek. Prison mail, forwarded through the company's legal department. Inside was a single sentence, "You were always the better man." I filed it in the trash can next to my desk. Sometimes the better man doesn't win because he's better at playing games or cutting corners or stealing what doesn't belong to him. Sometimes the better man wins because he's better at being patient, at building something real, at letting the truth speak for itself. And sometimes, when your brother steals your girlfriend and your promotion, the universe has a way of showing everyone exactly who the better man really is. If you've ever had someone close to you betray your trust, if you've ever watched the wrong person get rewarded while you did the right thing, this story is for you. Remember that character reveals itself over time, and the truth has a way of surfacing when you least expect it. Share this story if you believe that integrity always wins in the end, even when it takes a little help from the FBI. And subscribe for more stories about justice, karma, and the power of doing the right thing, even when no one is watching.
The words cut deeper than any knife could. Teaching? Really, Vanessa? With your potential, you could have been running a Fortune 500 company by now. Instead, you're stuck babysitting teenagers for minimum wage. I gripped my wine glass tighter, forcing a polite smile as my sister-in-law Charlene's perfectly manicured hand gestured dismissively across my brother-in-law's elaborate dining table. Another family dinner, another round of subtle, and not-so-subtle jabs at my career choice. My name is Vanessa, and I've spent the last 8 years teaching high school English, helping shape young minds and watching students discover their potential. It's my passion, my calling. But to Charlene, it might as well be a personal insult. Actually, I started, my voice steadier than I felt. I just got 3 of my students into Ivy League schools this year. How adorable, Charlene cooed, her voice dripping with condescension. I just closed a 7-figure deal that'll transform the entire tech sector. But hey, 3 college acceptance letters are nice too. My husband Calvin reached under the table and squeezed my knee. Char, come on, Vanessa's making a real difference. Of course she is, little brother, Charlene interrupted, taking another sip of her wine. Someone has to teach the children of actual successful people. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment to breathe. As I passed the kitchen, I heard Charlene's voice floating through the partially open door. I just don't understand what Calvin sees in her, she was saying to Travis, her husband. He could have married someone ambitious, someone who could have been his equal. Instead, he settled for a teacher. I froze, my heart pounding against my ribs. Honey, Travis replied, sounding tired, maybe not everyone measures success the same way you do. Please, success is success. There's a reason my salary has more zeros than hers. I slipped away before they could notice me, my cheeks burning. Instead of returning to the dining room, I grabbed my coat and car keys. I'm not feeling well, I texted Calvin. Headed home. Love you. 20 minutes later, I found myself in my classroom, surrounded by the familiar comfort of vocabulary posters and student artwork. My fingers traced the edge of a thank you card from Maria, a sophomore who'd finally found her voice through poetry. Ms. Davis? A voice startled me from the doorway. It was Caitlin, one of my former students who'd graduated last year and now volunteered as my teaching assistant. Caitlin? What are you doing here so late? She held up a stack of papers. Finishing the layouts for the literary magazine. Are you okay? You look like I've been crying. I laughed weakly, wiping my eyes. Just family stuff. Caitlin set down the papers and perched on one of the student desks. Want to talk about it? You've listened to enough of my drama over the years. I told her about dinner, about Charlene, about the constant belittling of my chosen profession. As I spoke, Caitlin's expression grew increasingly indignant. That's ridiculous, she burst out. You're the reason I'm majoring in creative writing now. You're the reason half my class actually graduated. Remember Tommy? The kid everyone had given up on? He's in college now because you stayed after school for 3 months straight helping him with his essays. I smiled, remembering Tommy's graduation day, how he'd hugged me and whispered, "Thanks for not giving up on me, Ms. D." Thanks, Caitlin. Sometimes I just need a reminder of why I do this. Well, your sister-in-law sounds like she needs a reminder of what real success looks like, Caitlin said, her eyes sparking with an idea. You know what would be amazing? If you could show her how many lives you've actually changed. Like, on a bigger scale. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Lucy, my best friend and fellow English teacher. Emergency wine and venting session? I've got chocolate. Rain check on the literary magazine? I asked Caitlin. I've got a date with a bottle of Merlot and my best friend. As I drove to Lucy's house, Charlene's words kept echoing in my head. But this time, instead of pain, I felt something else stirring. Determination. Maybe Caitlin was right. Maybe it was time to show my sister-in-law exactly what a mere teacher could accomplish. I just had no idea then how dramatically that determination would change my life, or how sweetly karma would eventually serve its justice. You've got to be kidding me, Lucy said, nearly spitting out her wine as she read the email on my phone. The National Education Reform Initiative wants to meet with you? Vanessa, this is huge. I snatched my phone back, rereading the email for the 10th time. It has to be a mistake. Why would they want me? Oh, I don't know, Lucy rolled her eyes. Maybe because your students have the highest college acceptance rate in the district? Or because that literacy program you started has spread to 3 other schools? We were sprawled across Lucy's living room floor, surrounded by empty chocolate wrappers and half-graded papers. It had been 2 weeks since the disaster dinner with Charlene, and I'd thrown myself into work to avoid thinking about it. The email mentioned something about educational ambassadors, I said, scrolling through it again. Whatever that means. It means, Lucy sat up straight, suddenly serious, that someone important noticed what you're doing here. When's the meeting? Tomorrow at 4 p.m., but I can't. If you say you can't go, I will personally drag you there myself, Lucy interrupted. This could be your chance to make real change, beyond just our school. My phone buzzed with a text from Calvin. Charlene's hosting a charity brunch next weekend. Please come. I'll make it up to you. Lucy read the text over my shoulder and groaned. Perfect timing. You can tell her about your fancy meeting with Neri when she starts her usual teaching is glorified babysitting routine. I'm not going to the brunch, I said firmly, and I'm not sure about this meeting either. What if what? Lucy challenged. What if you actually succeed? What if you get to help more students? What if you prove Charlene wrong about everything she's ever said about teachers? The next day, I found myself in the gleaming lobby of a downtown office building, my heart hammering against my ribs. A tall man with salt and pepper hair approached, his smile warm and genuine. Vanessa, I'm Xander Allen, Executive Director of Neri. Thank you for coming. He led me to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. To my surprise, there were several other people already seated around the table. These are some of our current educational ambassadors, Xander explained. They're here to share their experiences. For the next hour, I listened as teachers from across the country described their work, advocating for education reform, speaking at conferences, implementing innovative teaching methods. It was everything I'd ever dreamed of doing on a larger scale. We've been following your work, Vanessa, Xander said finally. The literacy program you developed, your success rates with at-risk students, it's exactly what we're looking for. I'm just doing my job, I mumbled. No, a woman across the table said firmly. You're doing much more than that. You're changing lives. Xander slid a folder across the table. We'd like you to join our ambassador program. You'd keep teaching, but also work with us to implement your methods in other schools. There's some travel involved, speaking engagements, policy meetings. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Calvin. Charlene says she's sorry about dinner. Please come to brunch. She wants to make amends. I stared at the message, then at the folder in front of me. Something clicked into place. What exactly would this role involve? I heard myself asking. Xander's eyes lit up. You'd be the face of educational reform in your region. We'd provide training, resources, support staff. Support staff? I interrupted, thinking of Caitlin. Of course. You'll need help managing everything. The speaking engagements alone. Speaking engagements? Conferences, fundraisers, charity events, he explained. Our ambassadors are quite in demand. My heart skipped a beat. Charity events, like the ones Charlene was always bragging about attending. When would I start? We have an orientation next month. After that, it's up to you how quickly you want to scale up your involvement. I took a deep breath, thinking about my students, about Caitlin's words, about Charlene's sneering comments, about all the other teachers out there fighting the same battles I was. I'm in, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. Xander beamed. Welcome aboard. Later that night, I finally replied to Calvin's text. Tell Charlene I'll be at brunch, and tell her I have some exciting news to share. Lucy's response to my update was immediate. OMG, yes. Please tell me I can be there when you tell Charlene. For the first time in years, I found myself looking forward to seeing my sister-in-law. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above. And I was about to rise higher than Charlene ever imagined I could. And then she just sat there, mouth hanging open like a goldfish. Lucy cackled, mimicking Charlene's expression from the brunch. I wish I'd recorded it. The best part was Travis actually congratulating me, I said, sorting through a stack of business cards on my desk. Did you see Charlene's face when he said he'd always admired teachers? It had been 3 weeks since I'd dropped my ambassador news at Charlene's brunch, and the memory still made me smile. But now, reality was setting in. My classroom was becoming command central for what felt like an educational revolution. Ms. Davis? Caitlin poked her head in, now my official assistant thanks to NARY's funding. The principal from Roosevelt High is on line 1. They want to know if you can present your literacy program next month. Tell them yes, but... I was interrupted by my phone buzzing, another email from Xander. Vanessa, major opportunity. Annual Education Innovation Gala coming up. Need you as keynote speaker. Call me ASAP. Lucy peered over my shoulder. Holy, do you know what this means? Before I could answer, Caitlin rushed back in. Ms. Davis, you're trending on Twitter. That video from your speech at the state education conference, it's everywhere. I grabbed my laptop and sure enough, there was my face, passionately explaining why we needed to revolutionize how we teach literature to modern students. The video had over 100,000 views. Look at the comments, Caitlin scrolled excitedly. This is the kind of teacher I wish I'd had. Finally, someone speaking truth about education reform. Where was she when I was failing English? My phone rang. Calvin. Babe, have you seen the news? You're on the front page of the education section. What? Which paper? All of them. Charlene just called me, actually. She seemed different. Asked if you'd consider speaking at her company's next corporate social responsibility event. I put the phone on speaker just as another call came through. Xander again. I'll call him back, I told Calvin. What did you tell Charlene? That you're booked solid for the next 3 months, which, by the way, we need to talk about. I barely see you anymore. Guilt gnawed at my stomach. He was right. Between teaching, speaking engagements, and program development, I was spreading myself thin. I know, I'm sorry. Dinner tonight? Just us? Actually, Calvin hesitated. Charlene and Travis invited us over. She insisted. Said something about wanting to properly acknowledge your achievements. I muted the phone. Lucy, what do you think? Trap? Absolutely. She nodded. But go anyway. Show her the new you. I unmuted. Okay, tell them we'll come. That evening, Charlene's mansion felt different. Or maybe I was the one who'd changed. Her usual intimidating aura seemed diminished somehow. Vanessa! She air-kissed my cheeks. You look professional. Is that a Diane von Furstenberg? Target, actually, I smiled. But thanks. Travis appeared with drinks. Vanessa, I showed that video of yours to our board. They were impressed. Very impressed. Charlene's smile tightened slightly. Yes, well, who knew teaching could be so influential? Though I suppose it's not really teaching anymore, is it? More like consulting. Oh, I'm still in the classroom every day, I corrected her. That's non-negotiable. It's where the real work happens. But surely with your new platform, Charlene pressed, you'll eventually move into full-time speaking and consulting? The money alone is nothing compared to seeing a student's face when they finally understand Shakespeare, I finished. Or helping a kid who hates reading discover their favorite book. Travis nodded approvingly. That's what I love about your approach, Vanessa. You're not just talking about change, you're actually doing it. Charlene's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and nearly dropped her wine glass. Everything okay? Calvin asked. Yes, just... She looked at me strangely. The Education Innovation Gala. My company is one of the main sponsors, and they just announced this year's keynote speaker. My phone buzzed at the same moment. Xander's message. It's official! You're our keynote speaker! Charlene's face did that goldfish thing again. You're the keynote speaker? Looks like it, I said, trying to keep my voice casual while my heart raced. Maybe we can collaborate on something. After all, education and corporate responsibility should go hand in hand, right? The look on her face was priceless, a mix of shock, confusion, and something else. Something that looked almost like respect. As we left that night, I heard Travis say to Charlene, maybe it's time to rethink our company's approach to education initiatives. Charlene's response was too quiet to hear, but her expression stayed with me. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about proving her wrong anymore. It was about something bigger, something that could actually change lives, including just maybe hers. No, no, no! I crumpled another draft of my speech and tossed it into the growing pile by my desk. This isn't right either. Ms. Davis, Caitlin said gently, picking up the discarded paper. This is the 12th version. The gala's tomorrow night. And Charlene will be in the front row, probably with her entire corporate board, I groaned. Everything has to be perfect. Lucy burst into my classroom, waving her phone. Have you seen the guest list? It just leaked online. Every major education reform advocate in the country will be there, plus half of Silicon Valley's tech giants. My stomach lurched. Not helping, Lucy. Sorry, she perched on my desk. But seriously, you've got this. Just talk about what you know, what you love. That's what I've been trying to tell her, Caitlin agreed. Show them what you showed us. My phone buzzed. A text from Calvin. Charlene just called. Says she's giving a speech too. Something about corporate investment in education. You okay? Perfect, I muttered. Just perfect. Wait, Lucy grabbed my phone. She's speaking too? That wasn't on the program. Last-minute addition, Caitlin confirmed, checking her tablet. Right before your keynote. I stood up, pacing the classroom. She's going to try to steal my thunder. Make it all about corporate funding and bottom lines. Then don't let her, Lucy said firmly. Show them what real education looks like. A knock at the door made us all jump. It was Travis. Sorry to interrupt, he said, looking uncomfortable. I thought you should know. Charlene's been practicing her speech all week. She's nervous. Nervous? I couldn't hide my surprise. Charlene? Look, Travis stepped inside, closing the door. She won't admit it, but your success has shaken her. The board's been talking about redirecting funds from her tech initiatives to education programs like yours. Is that why she added herself to the speaker list? Lucy asked. Travis nodded. She's trying to prove she's still relevant. But between us, I think she's fighting a losing battle. After he left, I sat back down at my desk, staring at the scattered speech drafts. Ms. Davis? Caitlin picked up one of the papers. Remember when Tommy was struggling with his college essay? What did you tell him? To write from his heart, I said automatically. To tell his truth. So maybe, she smiled, you should take your own advice? That night, I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Calvin brought me tea and kissed my forehead. You know what's funny? He said. Charlene used to practice her speeches in front of me when we were kids. She'd get so worked up she'd make herself sick. I looked up. Really? Yeah, she's always been terrified of failure. That's why she pushes so hard, acts so, well, you know. Something clicked. I started typing, the words finally flowing naturally. The next evening, I stood backstage at the gala, adjusting my dress, a simple but elegant black number that Lucy had helped me choose. Caitlin appeared with water and a reassuring smile. Full house, she reported. And guess who's sitting right next to Charlene? Xander and the entire Nary board. I peeked through the curtain. Charlene was there, looking immaculate as always, but her hands were shaking slightly as she arranged and rearranged her note cards. The program began. I half listened to the opening speeches, my heart pounding. Then Charlene was introduced. She strode to the podium, every inch the confident executive. But I noticed the slight tremor in her voice as she began. Education is about numbers, she started. Return on investment, measurable outcomes. As business leaders, we need to approach education like any other business venture. I watched the audience's reactions. Some nodded, but others shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't what they'd come to hear. 5 minutes, Caitlin whispered, squeezing my hand. I looked down at my speech. The real one, the true one. Not about numbers or outcomes or corporate buzzwords. About Tommy and Maria and every student who'd ever sat in my classroom believing they weren't good enough. And now, the announcer's voice boomed, our keynote speaker, a teacher who's revolutionizing education one classroom at a time. Charlene returned backstage, passing close enough that I caught the scent of her expensive perfume. For a moment, our eyes met. I saw something there I'd never seen before. Fear. Good luck, she whispered, surprising us both. I took a deep breath and walked toward the podium. The spotlight hit me, and I could feel hundreds of eyes watching, waiting. When I was a little girl, I began, my voice strong and clear, I believed that books could change the world. The truth, my truth, was about to take center stage. And for once, I wasn't afraid of Charlene hearing it. When I was a little girl, I believed that books could change the world. Today, standing in my classroom, I know they do. My voice carried across the hushed auditorium. But it's not just about books. It's about the student who stays after class to tell you they finally understand poetry. It's about the kid who swears they hate reading until they find that one story that changes everything. From the podium, I could see Charlene in the front row, her face unreadable. Next to her, Xander was leaning forward, completely engaged. Last month, a student asked me why I became a teacher instead of choosing a real career. Scattered laughs rippled through the audience. I told her about Tommy. I caught Caitlin's eye offstage. She nodded encouragingly. Tommy was the kid everyone had given up on. Failing grades, behavioral issues, zero interest in education. But one day, I caught him drawing elaborate comics in his notebook instead of taking notes. The room was silent now, hanging on every word. Instead of confiscating his notebook, I asked him to tell me his story. It turned out he had a whole universe in his head. Complex characters, intricate plot lines. So I made him a deal. He could write his story, but he had to learn proper grammar and structure to do it justice. I saw Charlene shift in her seat, her fingers drumming nervously on her armrest. Today, Tommy's studying creative writing in college. His first graphic novel comes out next year. I paused, letting that sink in. That's what education really is. Not test scores or ROI metrics, but recognizing potential in unexpected places. Travis reached over and squeezed Charlene's hand. She pulled away. We talk about education reform like it's about systems and statistics. But real reform happens one student at a time, one breakthrough at a time. It happens when we stop treating education like a business and start treating it like what it is, a transformation. The next 10 minutes flew by as I shared more stories. Maria finding her voice through poetry, James discovering his love for science, Sarah realizing she could be the first in her family to go to college. These students don't need our pity or our corporate initiatives, I said, looking directly at Charlene now. They need our belief in their potential. They need teachers who see them, who fight for them, who refuse to let them be reduced to numbers on a spreadsheet. Charlene's face had gone pale. She reached for her water glass with a shaking hand. So yes, we need reform. But not the kind that comes from boardrooms and bottom lines. We need reform that starts in classrooms, that recognizes teaching isn't just a job, it's a calling. And every time we dismiss it as just teaching or glorified babysitting, we fail not just our educators, but our future. The silence in the room was electric. I stand before you not just as a teacher, but as proof that one person who believes in education can create ripples that become waves. Imagine what we could do if we all believed. I stepped back from the podium as the room erupted in applause. People were standing, cheering. Xander was beaming. Travis was on his feet, clapping enthusiastically. Charlene remained seated, staring straight ahead. As I made my way backstage, Caitlin rushed to hug me. "That was incredible! Did you see their faces?" Lucy appeared, wiping tears from her eyes. "You destroyed it, and Charlene looked like she was going to—" "Excuse me." A quiet voice interrupted us. We turned to find Charlene standing there, looking smaller somehow without her usual confident posture. "Vanessa, she started, then stopped. For the first time ever, she seemed at a loss for words. "The board wants to meet with you," she finally managed. "They're talking about redirecting our entire education funding initiative. They want you to lead it." The irony wasn't lost on any of us. The woman who had dismissed my career choice for years was now watching it eclipse her own. "Charlene," I began, but she held up a hand. "Don't. Just don't." She turned and walked away quickly, her heels clicking on the polished floor. Calvin found me moments later, wrapping me in a tight hug. "That was amazing, babe. But are you okay?" I watched Charlene's retreating figure, remembering Travis's words about her fear of failure. I think I finally understand something about your sister." "Ms. Davis!" Caitlin called out. "The press wants photos, and Xander says there are some people you need to meet." As I moved to follow her, I caught a glimpse of Charlene through a side door, sitting alone in an empty conference room, her face in her hands. The victory I'd imagined feeling suddenly tasted different. This wasn't the end I'd expected. But then again, maybe it wasn't the end at all. "Coming," I called to Caitlin, straightening my shoulders. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. I'd found my voice, and I wasn't going to stop using it. "The board wants to move forward immediately," Xander announced, sliding a thick folder across the conference table. "Full funding, complete autonomy, and you'll be heading the entire education initiative." I glanced at the salary figure and nearly choked on my coffee. It was more money than I'd make in 5 years of teaching. "And Charlene?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Reassigned to tech development," Xander replied. "She's not taking it well." It had been 3 days since the gala, and I hadn't heard a word from my sister-in-law. Calvin said she wasn't returning his calls either. "Speaking of Charlene," Lucy chimed in from her spot by the window. "You might want to see this." She handed me her phone. On the screen was Charlene's latest LinkedIn post. "After careful consideration, I'm stepping down from my position to pursue other opportunities." "She quit?" I looked up, shocked. "But she loves her job." "Loved," Xander corrected. "Things change. People change." My phone buzzed. A text from Travis. "Can we meet? It's about Charlene." An hour later, I found Travis at a small coffee shop downtown, looking exhausted. "She hasn't left the house in days," he said, stirring his untouched latte. "Just sits in her home office, staring at her awards wall. I've never seen her like this." "I never meant to." "I know," he interrupted, "but you need to understand something about Charlene. Everything she's ever done has been about proving herself. Her parents always told her she had to be the best, had to win at everything. When you came along—" "I threatened that," I finished. "You didn't just threaten it. You completely upended her worldview. She built her identity around corporate success, around being the one who made it. Now, my phone buzzed again. Caitlin. Emergency at school. Need you ASAP. I found Caitlin in my classroom, surrounded by students. To my surprise, they were all former graduates, including Tommy. What's going on? We heard about the new position, Tommy said. About you maybe leaving teaching. How did you... Social media, another student, Maria, cut in. Everyone's talking about it, about how you're going to run this huge corporate program. But you can't leave, Tommy added. Who's going to help other kids like me? I looked at their faces, these students who'd become so much more than just names on a roster. Then I thought about Charlene, sitting alone in her home office, surrounded by empty achievements. Ms. Davis? Caitlin stepped forward. Remember what you told me when I was struggling with college applications? Success isn't about winning, it's about making a difference. My phone rang. Calvin. Babe, you need to come to Charlene's, now. 20 minutes later, I stood in Charlene's pristine living room, watching my sister-in-law pace back and forth. I don't need your pity, she snapped before I could speak. I don't need anything from you. Good, I replied. Because I'm not here to offer pity. I'm here to offer a partnership. She stopped pacing. What? The program needs both of us, I said. Your business expertise, my education experience. Together, we could create something revolutionary. Why would you want to work with me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. After everything I've said, everything I've done, because you were right about one thing. Education needs to change, but not through corporate takeovers or standardized metrics. Through understanding, through connection, through actually caring, she finished, sinking onto her designer couch. Like you do. Like we both could, I corrected, if we worked together. She was quiet for a long moment. I wouldn't know where to start. Start by coming to my classroom tomorrow. See what real education looks like. Then we'll talk about how to scale it. Your classroom? She looked terrified at the prospect. Unless you're scared, I challenged, seeing a familiar spark return to her eyes. Fine, she straightened her shoulders. But I'm not sitting in those tiny desks. As I left her house, Travis caught up with me in the driveway. Whatever you said in there, he smiled. It worked. She's already on her laptop researching education statistics. My phone buzzed one last time. Xander. Board meeting tomorrow. Need your decision on the position. I looked back at Charlene's house, then typed my response. I'll take it with conditions. First, I keep teaching. Second, I want Charlene as my co-director. The reply was immediate. Bold move. Why? I thought about Tommy and Maria, about Charlene's empty awards wall, about the difference between winning and succeeding. Because sometimes, I typed, the best revenge is showing someone a better way to live. Ms. Davis, I think your sister-in-law is having a breakdown, Caitlin whispered, peering through the classroom door. Charlene stood in the hallway, designer suit perfectly pressed, looking like she might bolt at any second. It was her first day observing my class, and she'd already rescheduled twice. Deep breaths, I said, opening the door. Ready? This is ridiculous, Charlene muttered, but followed me inside. I haven't been in a high school classroom since you were busy being class president and valedictorian, I finished. Calvin told me. 25 students looked up as we entered, curiosity written across their faces. Everyone, this is Ms. Mitchell. She'll be observing today as part of our new education initiative. Is she the corporate lady who used to make you cry? A voice piped up from the back. Charlene flinched. I bit back a smile. Jake, what have we said about appropriate questions? Sorry, Ms. Davis. Sorry, Ms. Mitchell. I launched into my lesson on The Great Gatsby, watching Charlene from the corner of my eye. She sat rigid in her chair, taking notes on her tablet, but I could see her expression changing as the class progressed. So, I asked the students, why does Gatsby throw those elaborate parties? To show off his money, one student called out. To get Daisy's attention, another added. To prove he's worthy, Charlene suddenly spoke up. The room fell silent. He's trying to prove he belongs in their world. that he's just as good as them, better even. The student stared at her. She cleared her throat awkwardly. I mean, that's just my interpretation. No, you're right, Maria said thoughtfully. It's like when people post their achievements on social media, trying to prove something to everyone else. Or like when my mom works extra shifts to buy designer clothes she can't afford, another student added. I watched Charlene's face as recognition dawned. These weren't just random teenagers, they were insightful young people making connections she'd never considered. The discussion continued, growing more animated. To my surprise, Charlene joined in several times, offering perspectives that actually resonated with the students. After class, she remained seated while the students filed out. That was unexpected, she said finally. The part where teenagers can think deeply, or the part where you enjoyed teaching? She shot me a look, but there was no malice in it. Both, I suppose. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. I need to show you something. 20 minutes later, we sat in her home office. She pulled up a presentation on her laptop. I've been working on this since our talk, she said. A complete restructuring of the education initiative. Less focus on metrics, more on actual student engagement. See these numbers? I leaned in, surprised by the depth of her research. She'd analyzed everything from student participation rates to long-term career success correlations. This could work, I said slowly. But we'd need to keep it grounded in real classroom experience, she finished. I know, that's why... She hesitated. That's why I want to teach one class. I nearly fell out of my chair. You what? Just one, maybe a business elective or something. I need to understand this from the inside. Before I could respond, Calvin burst in. There you are. Have you seen the news? He held up his phone. The headline read, Corporate Executive Trades Boardroom for Classroom, a new model for education reform. How did they... Charlene started. One of the students must have posted about you being in class, I realized. Social media... This is perfect, Calvin exclaimed. The board will love it. Real commitment to understanding education from the ground up. Charlene looked pale. But I haven't actually agreed to... Yes, you have, I interrupted. I saw your face in that classroom today. You felt it, didn't you? The moment when everything clicks for a student? When they make connections you never expected? She was quiet for a long moment. I forgot, she finally said. Forgot what? What it feels like to learn something new, to be excited about understanding. She turned to her laptop, closing the presentation. I've spent so long trying to prove I'm the best, I forgot what it feels like to just... grow. Well, I smiled. Lucky for you, I know a great teacher who can help with that. Very funny, she rolled her eyes, but she was smiling too. But if we're doing this, we're doing it right. I want to understand everything. Curriculum development, student assessment, classroom management. Careful, I warned. You might actually end up loving it. Maybe, she admitted. But if anyone at my country club asks, I'm conducting intensive field research. As we left her office, I caught sight of her awards wall. Something was different. You took down your CEO of the Year plaque, I noticed. Replaced it with something better, she said quietly. In its place hung a simple thank you card from my class, signed by all the students. Sometimes I realized the biggest victories come not from defeating your enemies, but from turning them into allies. And now, please welcome back to the stage our co-directors of the National Education Innovation Program. The applause thundered through the auditorium as Charlene and I walked onto the stage together. This time, neither of us was trying to outshine the other. Last time I stood here, Charlene began, I talked about ROI and performance metrics. I was wrong. She paused, looking out at the packed audience. My sister-in-law taught me that real education isn't about numbers. It's about transformation, and not just for the students. I stepped forward. When we launched this program, people said it couldn't work. A teacher and a corporate executive, oil and water. Scattered laughter rippled through the crowd. But that's exactly why it did work. Because real change happens when we stop competing and start collaborating. Speaking of collaboration, Charlene smiled, we have a surprise guest. Tommy? Tommy walked onto the stage, holding his published graphic novel. The audience burst into applause. His story had become somewhat legendary in education circles. This book, he held it up, exists because Ms. Davis saw potential where everyone else saw a problem student. And now, thanks to the program she and Ms. Mitchell created, thousands of other students are finding their own paths. From the front row, Lucy wiped away tears while Caitlin, now our program director, beamed proudly. But we're not here to talk about past successes, I continued. We're here to announce the next phase. Charlene stepped forward. Starting next semester, I'm leaving the corporate world entirely. Gasps echoed through the hall. I'll be teaching full-time while continuing to co-direct this program. Because you can't transform education from the outside. You have to be in the trenches. The audience erupted. In the front row, Travis was grinning ear to ear. Next to him, Calvin looked like he might burst with pride. My sister-in-law used to mock my career choice, I said, turning to Charlene. Now she steals my lesson plans. Only because yours needs serious updating, she shot back, making the audience laugh. Who still teaches Shakespeare without digital integration? Says the woman who had to ask what TikTok was last week. Our playful banter wasn't just for show, it was who we'd become. Somewhere between classroom observations and late-night curriculum planning sessions, we'd found not just respect, but genuine friendship. After the presentation, we gathered in my classroom, the same room where this journey had started. Lucy had arranged a small celebration, complete with cheap wine and paper cups. Remember when you used to hide in here crying after family dinners? Lucy asked, passing me a cup. Now she hides in here planning lessons, Calvin laughed, wrapping an arm around my waist. I do not hide, Charlene protested, walking in with Travis. I strategically retreat to optimize lesson effectiveness. Still can't talk like a normal person, Travis teased, earning a playful swat from his wife. Caitlin arrived with Tommy and Maria, now both working for our program while pursuing their degrees. Ms. Davis, Tommy said, remember when you caught me drawing comics in class? Remember when you said you'd never read Shakespeare? I countered. Now look at him, Maria grinned, teaching creative writing to middle schoolers. Speaking of teaching, Charlene cut in, I need help with my first solo lesson plan. These teenagers are terrifying. Not so easy, is it? I smirked. What happened to teaching is just glorified babysitting? I was an idiot, she admitted freely, but at least I'm a teachable idiot. The best kind, Travis kissed her cheek. Looking around the room at these people who'd become so much more than colleagues or even family, I felt something settle into place. This wasn't the revenge I'd originally wanted. It was better. Hey, Charlene touched my arm. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it. That's what teachers do, I smiled. We see potential, even when it's hiding behind designer suits and corporate jargon. And sometimes, she added softly, we learn more than we teach. The evening wound down, but before everyone left, Tommy insisted on one last toast. To Ms. Davis and Ms. Mitchell, he raised his cup, for showing us that the best stories aren't about winning or losing, they're about growing. And to second chances, Charlene added, meeting my eyes, both giving and receiving them. As everyone clinked their paper cups, I looked at my classroom walls, now covered with a mix of student artwork and corporate achievement certificates, Shakespeare quotes, and business strategy flowcharts. It wasn't what I'd imagined when I'd first sought revenge against Charlene. It was infinitely better, because sometimes the best revenge isn't about making someone fall, it's about helping them rise in a different direction. And in the process, rising yourself. Ready for tomorrow? Charlene asked as we gathered our things. Always, I smiled. We've got lessons to plan, minds to open, lives to change, she finished. And that, really, was what it had been about all along.
The cream-colored envelope felt like it was burning through my fingers. I must have read the names printed in elegant gold script 100 times, but they still didn't make sense. Camilla Armstrong and Gabriel Evans request the pleasure of your company. My mother and my boyfriend of 6 years. Getting married to each other. My name is Hope, and this is the story of how I destroyed my mother's wedding. Are you actually going to open it? Victoria asked, perched on the edge of my kitchen counter with a glass of wine that had long since gone warm. She'd rushed over the moment I texted her about the invitation's arrival. I already know what's inside, I said, finally tearing open the envelope. Just like I knew something was wrong when Gabriel started working late at Mom's company 6 months ago. Just like I knew something was off when Mom started wearing that perfume he bought me for Christmas. The invitation slipped out, along with a handwritten note in my mother's perfect cursive. "Darling, I hope you'll stand beside me on my special day. Despite everything, you're still my daughter." I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Victoria set down her wine and wrapped her arms around me. "Your mom is a real piece of work," she whispered. "You know what the worst part is?" I pulled away, wiping my eyes. Last Thanksgiving, when Gabriel said he needed space to find himself, Mom held me while I cried. She stroked my hair and told me everything happens for a reason. "Hope," Victoria started. "No, wait, it gets better." I grabbed my phone, scrolling through old messages. Look at this text from her, dated 2 weeks after Gabriel moved out. "Sweetheart, come over for dinner. You can't keep hiding away. Let me help you heal." Victoria's face darkened as she read the message. She was already seeing him then, wasn't she? Had to be. I walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. You know what I remember most from growing up? How everyone said I was lucky to have such a glamorous mother. Camilla Armstrong, the successful businesswoman who somehow managed to be the perfect single mom too. People only saw what she wanted them to see. Exactly. I turned back to Victoria. "Remember last month when I told you I thought I saw them together at that little Italian place on 4th Street? The one Gabriel and I used to love. And I told you that you were being paranoid." Victoria grimaced. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be. You helped me see what I needed to see." I picked up the invitation again, running my finger along the embossed edges. "They're getting married in 6 weeks, at the Grand Plaza Hotel. Mom always said she'd help plan my wedding there someday." "You don't have to go," Victoria said softly. "No one would blame you." A memory flashed through my mind. Gabriel and I curled up on his couch, planning our future. "I want your mom to help with the wedding," he'd said. "She has amazing taste." Now I wondered if he'd been thinking about my mother even then. "Actually, I do have to go." I walked to my desk and pulled out my laptop. "But not for the reasons they think." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "What are you planning?" "You know what I've been investigating for the paper? Those real estate investment scams?" I opened a folder filled with documents. Guess whose company's name keeps coming up in my research? "No way." Victoria leaned in closer. "Your mom's involved." I wasn't sure at first, but then I started digging deeper. I clicked through several spreadsheets. "There are millions missing, Victoria, and the signatures on these documents, I'd know Gabriel's handwriting anywhere." "Holy shit." Victoria grabbed my arm. "Hope, are you saying—" "I'm saying that my mother and my ex-boyfriend aren't just planning their dream wedding. They're also running a massive fraud scheme." I closed the laptop with a decisive click. "And I'm going to expose everything, right in the middle of their perfect day." "That's—" Victoria paused, a slow smile spreading across her face. "That's absolutely brilliant and terrifying. Are you sure about this?" I picked up the invitation one last time, then deliberately ripped it in half. "Mom always taught me to go after what I want, to never let anyone take advantage of me." I dropped the torn pieces into the trash. I guess it's time to show her just how well I learned those lessons. My phone buzzed with a text. "Mom. Darling, did you get the invitation? Please say you'll be there. It would mean everything to have you with us." I typed back quickly. "Of course, Mom. I wouldn't miss it for the world." Victoria raised her glass. "To Karma." I grabbed my own glass, clinking it against hers. "To karma, and to making sure everyone finally sees the truth." Looking back now, I realize that moment was when everything truly began. When I decided to stop being the dutiful daughter and start being the woman who would bring it all crashing down. But first, I had 6 weeks to gather every piece of evidence, every dark secret, every betrayal. And then I would give them a wedding day they'd never forget. "Look at this," Victoria said, spreading documents across my dining room table. Your mother's company made 6 real estate purchases in the last year alone. Each property was bought for way above market value. It had been 3 days since the wedding invitation arrived, and we'd barely slept, diving deep into my mother's business dealings. The morning sun streamed through my apartment windows, illuminating coffee cups and takeout containers scattered among the papers. "That's just the beginning," I said, pulling up a spreadsheet on my laptop. "See these wire transfers? They're going to shell companies. Gabriel's signature is on every single one." Victoria leaned closer, frowning. "When did he start working for your mom's company?" "Officially, 8 months ago." I clicked through more documents. "But look at this email chain from last year. They were already discussing investment opportunities while he was still living with me. While you were still planning your future together," Victoria added quietly. The memory hit me like a punch to the gut. "Last summer, we went ring shopping. He said he was just getting ideas." I laughed bitterly. Guess he was getting ideas all right, just not for me. My phone buzzed. Mom's face lit up the screen. "Darling, we simply must discuss your dress for the wedding. Lunch today? The usual place?" I showed Victoria the text. "Should I go?" "Absolutely." Victoria's eyes gleamed. "We need to know if she suspects anything. Plus, you might learn something useful." 2 hours later, I sat across from my mother at Café Lucien, watching her delicately cut into her salmon. She looked immaculate as always, perfectly styled silver hair, designer outfit, not a wrinkle in sight. "I'm so glad you're being mature about all this," she said, reaching across the table to pat my hand. "Gabriel was worried you might make a scene." I forced a smile. "Why would I? You've always said everything happens for a reason." "Exactly," she beamed. "You know, when Gabriel first came to work for me, I never imagined. But sometimes love just sneaks up on you." "When exactly did it sneak up on you, Mom?" I kept my voice light, casual. "Was it before or after he moved out of our apartment?" Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Hope, darling, don't be crude. These things are complicated. Like your latest property acquisitions." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" "Oh, just something I heard at work. You know how we journalists love our real estate stories." I sipped my water. "That development project on Riverside is fascinating. Business talk is so boring." She waved her hand dismissively. "Let's discuss your dress. I'm thinking emerald green would be lovely with your coloring." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Found something big. Get back here ASAP." "Actually, Mom, I need to run." Breaking news story. I stood, dropping my napkin on the table. "But you're right. Emerald green would be perfect." She stood to kiss my cheek. "That's my girl. I knew you'd understand eventually." I barely made it out of the restaurant before my hands started shaking. Back at my apartment, Victoria was practically bouncing with excitement. "You're not going to believe this," she said, pulling up a document on my laptop. "Remember that old family friend, Javier? He's listed as a director on 3 of these shell companies." "Javier," I stared at the screen. "He's been coming to our Christmas parties for 20 years. He used to bring me birthday presents." "Well, now he's helping your mom and Gabriel hide millions in fraudulent real estate deals." Victoria pointed to a series of signatures. "And look who notarized these documents. Margaret from Mom's office." I felt sick. How many people are involved in this? Enough to make it a major story. Victoria looked at me seriously. "Hope, this is bigger than just revenge now. These people are stealing millions." I sank onto my couch, mind racing. Mom invited Javier to the wedding. He's supposed to give a toast. Perfect. Victoria sat beside me. "But we need more concrete evidence, bank records, emails, something that proves intent to defraud." "I might know how to get those." I pulled out my phone, scrolling through contacts. "Remember Atticus? The family lawyer who helped with Dad's estate. He's always had concerns about Mom's business practices. Will he help?" Only one way to find out. I dialed his number, heart pounding. "Atticus, it's Hope. I need your help with something sensitive. Can we meet?" After arranging a meeting for the next morning, I turned to Victoria. You know what's funny? All those years growing up, I thought Mom was this amazing, powerful woman who could do anything. She is powerful, Victoria said quietly. She's just not amazing. No, I agreed, looking at the evidence of her crimes spread across my table. But soon everyone else will know that too. My phone buzzed again, another text from Mom. Darling, Gabriel and I would love to have you over for dinner this weekend. Family should stick together, don't you think? I smiled grimly as I typed my response. Absolutely, Mom. Family is everything. Atticus's office hadn't changed in 20 years. Same leather chairs, same wall of law books, same concerned expression as he reviewed the documents spread across his desk. He paused, adjusting his reading glasses. Troubling, to say the least. That's one word for it, I said, watching him flip through the papers Victoria and I had compiled. Can you help me access the rest of Mom's records? He leaned back in his chair, studying me. Hope, I've known you since you were 11 years old. Are you sure you want to go down this road? She's marrying my boyfriend, Atticus. My boyfriend. My voice cracked slightly. And they're stealing millions while doing it. He nodded slowly, then pressed a button on his intercom. Sandra, hold my calls, please. Turning back to me, he pulled out a thick file from his drawer. Your mother made me sign extensive NDAs, but there are irregularities I've noticed over the years. What kind of irregularities? Property valuations that didn't add up. Companies appearing and disappearing too quickly. He spread out more documents. About 6 months ago, she started moving large sums through offshore accounts. Around the time Gabriel started working for her, I noted. Exactly. Atticus removed his glasses, rubbing his eyes. Hope, do you remember when your father died? The question caught me off guard. Of course, I was 16. Your mother took control of his share of the business remarkably quickly. He gave me a meaningful look, almost as if she'd been preparing for it. My stomach lurched. What are you saying? I'm saying that your mother has a pattern of using people, then discarding them when they're no longer useful. He pulled out another file. These are copies of documents I've kept, just in case. Bank statements, contracts, emails, things that seemed off. My phone buzzed. Gabriel's name appeared on the screen. I showed it to Atticus. Answer it, he said. Act normal. I took a deep breath and picked up. Hello? Hope. Gabriel's voice was warm, familiar. It hurt more than I expected. Your mom said you had lunch yesterday. I'm glad you're taking this so well. Well, you know me. I forced a laugh. Always practical. That's what I loved about you. A pause. Love about you. As a person, I mean. Listen, I know this is weird, but I'd really like us to stay friends. I gripped the edge of Atticus's desk until my knuckles turned white. Of course, we're practically family now, right? Exactly. Hey, maybe we could grab coffee, just to talk things through? Atticus was frantically writing on a notepad. Say yes, might reveal info. Sure, I managed. Tomorrow morning? That place near your office? After arranging details and hanging up, I slumped in my chair. I think I'm going to be sick. You're stronger than you think, Atticus said, pushing the stack of documents toward me. And now you have ammunition. Is this enough to stop them? With some additional evidence, yes. He wrote down an address. There's a storage facility where your mother keeps hard copies of everything, old habits from before digital records. The unit number is on this paper. How do I get in? You don't. He smiled slightly. But I have access as her lawyer. I could accidentally leave my key card somewhere, say on this desk, while I use the restroom. As if on cue, he stood and walked out. His key card sat conspicuously next to his coffee cup. My phone buzzed again. Victoria, how's it going with Atticus? I quickly texted back. Better than expected. Meet me in an hour, bringing presents. When Atticus returned, I was studying his law degrees on the wall, his key card safely in my pocket. Hope, he said seriously. Whatever you find, whatever you do, be careful. Your mother isn't just ruthless in business. I know. I gathered the documents he'd given me. Why are you helping me? He was quiet for a moment. I knew your father. He was a good man. What happened to him? Well, let's just say I've carried some suspicions for a long time. A chill ran down my spine. Atticus, are you saying? I'm not saying anything specific. He held up a hand. Just that patterns tend to repeat themselves. And your mother has a pattern of removing obstacles from her path. I thought about Gabriel, about how quickly he'd gone from planning a future with me to working with my mother. She doesn't just discard people, I realized. She corrupts them first. Exactly. Atticus walked me to the door. Be careful tomorrow with Gabriel. Men in love can be dangerous. Gabriel's not in love, I said, thinking of the fraud documents bearing his signature. He's in business. Outside, the spring air felt too warm, too thick. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my mother, and a text. Darling, I've found the perfect wedding dress for you as my maid of honor. Come try it on tomorrow. I thought about the storage facility keycard in my pocket, about Gabriel's coffee invitation, about all the pieces falling into place. Sorry, Mom, I muttered, typing a response. Can't tomorrow, but don't worry. I'm working on making your wedding absolutely unforgettable. The coffee shop buzzed with morning energy as I watched Gabriel through the window. He sat at our old favorite table, checking his watch every few minutes. Same leather jacket, same perfectly messy hair, same way of drumming his fingers when he was nervous. How had I never seen the calculation behind his charm? Remember the plan. Victoria's voice crackled through my earpiece. She was parked across the street, ready to head to the storage facility the moment I had Gabriel distracted. Keep him talking, get him comfortable. I adjusted my hidden phone recorder and walked in. Gabriel's face lit up when he saw me, and for a split second, my resolve wavered. Hope! He stood, pulling me into a hug that felt both familiar and wrong. You look amazing. Thanks. I sat down, noting the coffee he'd already ordered for me. Oat milk latte, just how I liked it. So do you. Mom's keeping you well. He had the decency to flinch. I know this is awkward. Awkward? I stirred my coffee. Finding out your boyfriend of 6 years is marrying your mother. That's a bit more than awkward, don't you think? It just happened, he said, reaching for my hand. I pulled back. We never meant to hurt you. Tell me something. I leaned forward. When did it start? Really? He shifted uncomfortably. Hope, I deserve to know, Gabriel. Was it when you started working for her company? No, it was. He paused, choosing his words carefully. The investment opportunities came first. Your mother has an incredible mind for business. And for other things, apparently. I forced a smile. Those property deals must be paying off well. His expression changed slightly. What do you know about the properties? Only what Mom's mentioned. I shrugged. She's always bragging about her latest acquisitions, like that riverside development? Gabriel relaxed visibly. Right, of course. Listen, Hope, I know this is all complicated, but I'm hoping we can move past it. Your mother really wants you at the wedding. Victoria's Inn, came the whisper through my earpiece. Storage unit located. I took a sip of coffee. Tell me about the wedding plans. Mom said it's at the Grand Plaza. Everything top of the line. He grinned. You know your mother, only the best will do. We're even flying in some guests from overseas, business partners. Lots of documents, Victoria murmured in my ear. Holy shit, Hope. There are offshore account details here, and something about your dad's old company. I kept my face neutral as Gabriel talked about flower arrangements and menu selections. My phone buzzed, a text from Javier. Need to talk, urgent, about your mother. Finding something interesting, Victoria whispered. Looks like medical records. Gabriel, I interrupted his monologue about wine selections. Did you ever wonder why Mom was so quick to hire you, to trust you with such big accounts? He frowned. What do you mean? Just that she's usually more careful about who she lets into her inner circle. She saw my potential. His tone turned defensive, unlike some people. Hope, Victoria's voice was tense. You need to see these papers about your dad. Get out of there now. I stood abruptly. This was enlightening, but I should go. Wait. Gabriel grabbed my wrist. What's really going on here, Hope? I met his eyes. You tell me, Gabriel, how many shell companies are you managing now? His grip tightened painfully. Be careful, he said softly. You're playing with things you don't understand. I yanked my arm free. Actually, I understand perfectly. Say hi to Mom for me. Outside, I practically ran to Victoria's car, my heart pounding. She sat in the driver's seat, surrounded by photographs and documents. Hope, she said, her face pale. These records, they're about your father's death, the medical reports, the timing of certain transfers. It wasn't a heart attack. My world tilted sideways. What? There's more. She handed me a stack of papers. Gabriel's been involved with your mother's company longer than we thought. Way longer. Look at the dates. I flipped through the documents, my hands shaking. These go back 2 years before he met me. He didn't randomly ask you out at that coffee shop, Victoria said quietly. He targeted you. They planned it all. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Javier. Your mother knows you're digging. Watch your back. Then another message from Gabriel. We should finish our conversation. Come to the house tonight. What do we do now? Victoria asked. I thought about Gabriel's threat in the coffee shop, about Atticus's warnings, about my father's suspicious death. We go deeper, I said. And we make sure we have backup copies of everything. Hope, Victoria hesitated. This is getting dangerous. It was always dangerous. I pulled out my phone and texted Javier. Meet me, 1 hour, bring everything you know. Then I texted Gabriel back. Sorry, busy tonight. But don't worry, I'll definitely see you at the wedding. Victoria started the car. Where to? First, we scan these documents. Then we meet Javier. I looked at the medical records about my father. It's time to find out just how far my mother will go to get what she wants. Javier never showed up for our meeting. Instead, I got a text. Your mother's here. Can't talk. Destroy this message. This is bad, Victoria said, pacing my living room. Really bad. My phone rang. Mom's number. I put it on speaker. Darling. Her voice was silk smooth. I just had the loveliest chat with Javier. He seemed quite anxious about something. You wouldn't happen to know why, would you? No idea. I kept my voice light. Maybe he's stressed about his wedding toast. I could hear her smile. Why don't you come over for dinner? We can discuss the wedding. Gabriel's cooking. Victoria frantically shook her head. Sorry, Mom. Deadline at work. Interesting. Papers rustled in the background. Because I just spoke with your editor. He mentioned you've taken some time off. Something about a personal investigation. My blood ran cold. Since when do you talk to my editor? Oh, sweetheart, I talk to everyone. Her tone hardened slightly. Now, about dinner. Actually, I said, making a sudden decision. You're right. Let's talk. But not at your house. Meet me at Riverside Park, by the fountain. 1 hour. A pause. Just us. Just us. After hanging up, Victoria grabbed my arm. Are you insane? You can't meet her alone. I'll be in public, I said, pulling out my recorder. And I need to know how much she knows. The park was quiet as dusk settled. My mother sat on a bench by the fountain, elegant as always, in her cream-colored suit. A manila envelope sat beside her. Hope, she smiled warmly. Sit. I remained standing. What did you say to Javier? Direct, as always. She patted the envelope. Just like these interesting documents you've been collecting. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Did you really think I wouldn't investigate? I countered. After what you did? What I did. She laughed softly. You mean falling in love? Or running my business as I see fit? I mean killing Dad. The words hung in the air between us. Her smile didn't waver. That's a serious accusation, darling. She opened the envelope, pulling out photographs, almost as serious as breaking into private storage units, gathering confidential documents, harassing business associates. The photos showed me and Victoria at the storage facility, at Atticus's office, meeting various sources. You've been watching me. I've been protecting you, she corrected, just like I always have. You're my daughter, Hope, Everything I do is for family. Like seducing my boyfriend? Gabriel. She actually rolled her eyes. Please. He came to me. Ambitious young man. Eager to prove himself. Sound familiar, just like your father was, once upon a time. Until he started asking questions about the company finances. Her eyes glittered. Your father had a weak heart. It's in all the medical records. The medical records you falsified. Prove it. She stood, smoothing her suit. Oh wait, you can't. Because all your evidence? She dropped the envelope into the fountain. It's amazing how quickly paper dissolves in water. I smiled. You think those were the only copies? For the first time, her composure slipped. What? I learned from you, Mom. Always have backups. I pulled out my phone, showing her the screen. Like this recording of our entire conversation. She moved faster than I expected, reaching for my phone. I stepped back. It's already uploaded to the cloud, I said, along with everything else. The fraud documents, Dad's real medical records, the offshore accounts, even your conversations with Gabriel from before you set him up to date me. You're bluffing. Try me. I met her eyes. You taught me well, Mom. Never go into a fight without ammunition. She studied me for a long moment. What do you want? Originally. To stop your wedding. Now? I stepped closer. I want justice. For Dad. For everyone you've hurt. I could destroy you, she said softly. Your career, your reputation. You could try. I showed her another file on my phone. But then these documents go straight to the FBI. Your choice. She sat back down, suddenly looking older. You'd really do that to your own mother? You'd really kill your own husband? Steal your daughter's boyfriend? Ruin countless lives for profit? It's business, Hope, nothing personal. Well, this is personal. I turned to leave. See you at the wedding, Mom. I hear green really is my color. Hope, she called after me. You're making a mistake. I looked back at her, sitting alone by the fountain in the growing darkness. No, Mom. For the first time in my life, I'm not. My phone buzzed as I walked away. Gabriel, your mother seems upset. What did you do? I typed back. Just had a family chat. Don't worry. I'm sure she'll fill you in. After all, you're practically my dad now, right? Victoria was waiting in her car. Well? She's scared, I said, buckling up. And she should be. We have 2 weeks until the wedding. And now she knows I'm coming for her. What's our next move? I pulled out the real envelope of documents from my bag. Now we go nuclear. Call Atticus. It's time to get the FBI involved. The wedding rehearsal dinner buzzed with fake laughter and clinking glasses. I sat at the family table, watching my mother hold court, while Gabriel hovered at her side, like an attentive puppy. The FBI agent posing as my +1 squeezed my hand under the table. Steady, Agent Sarah whispered. Everything's in place for tomorrow. I nodded, taking another sip of champagne. The past week had been a whirlwind of secret meetings, wiretaps, and carefully planted evidence. Atticus had come through with everything the FBI needed to build their case. Hope, darling, my mother's voice carried across the table. You've barely touched your food. And who is your lovely friend again? Sarah, I smiled. We worked together at the paper. How nice. Mom's eyes narrowed slightly. Though I thought I knew all your colleagues. Gabriel leaned forward. Speaking of work, Hope, your editor mentioned you've been working on quite the story. Anything we should know about? Oh, I shrugged. Just following the money. It's amazing what people think they can hide these days. The champagne glass in my mother's hand trembled slightly. Darling, perhaps we should discuss your career choices in private. Why? I looked around the table. Isn't family supposed to share everything? Javier, sitting 3 seats down, suddenly developed a coughing fit. Hope, Gabriel's voice held a warning. This isn't the time or place. You're right. I stood, raising my glass. This is a time for toasts, isn't it? To the happy couple, to new beginnings, to secrets finally coming to light. That's enough, my mother snapped, her composure cracking. Is it? I turned to the other guests. Did you know Gabriel and my mother were involved for months before he broke up with me? Or that the company's real estate deals are all— Gabriel grabbed my arm, pulling me away from the table. Outside, now. In the hotel corridor, he slammed me against the wall. What the hell are you playing at? Let go of me, I said calmly, very aware of the wire I was wearing. You think you're so clever, he hissed, but you have no idea what your mother is capable of. Actually, I do. Dad found out too, didn't he? Right before his heart attack. His grip tightened. You need to drop this, Hope, for your own good. Or what? You'll spike my drink like you did to Dad? He stepped back as if burned. How did you— No? I straightened my dress. I know everything, Gabriel, about the long con, about how Mom hired you to date me so she could keep tabs on me, about the offshore accounts, the fraudulent properties, all of it. You can't prove anything. Check your text messages. He pulled out his phone, face draining of color, as he saw the files I'd just sent him. Documents, recordings, photographs. That's not even half of what I have, I said. Still want to marry into the family. Hope? My mother's voice rang out behind us. Is everything all right? I turned to face her, Gabriel's handprint still red on my arm. Perfect, Mom. Just having a heart-to-heart with my future stepfather. She glanced between us, calculating. Gabriel, give us a moment. Once he left, she stepped closer. What do you want? Money? A position in the company? I want you to feel what it's like to lose everything, I said quietly. Just like Dad did. Just like I did. I'm trying to protect you, she insisted. Everything I've done. Save it for tomorrow. I cut her off. During your vows, I'm sure everyone would love to hear about your true feelings on love and loyalty. Back in the dining room, Sarah was talking to Victoria, who'd arrived as another guest's date. The pieces were all in place. Everything okay? Victoria asked as I sat down. Perfect. I checked my phone. New message from Atticus. FBI team confirmed for tomorrow. All evidence secured. My mother returned to her seat, perfectly composed once again. Gabriel whispered something in her ear, and she nodded slightly. A toast. She stood, raising her glass. To family, to love, and to my beautiful daughter, who I know will make me proud tomorrow. The threat in her voice was clear. I raised my glass in return. To tomorrow, Mom. It's going to be unforgettable. Later that night, in my apartment, Victoria helped me lay out my dress for the wedding. Emerald green, just as my mother wanted. Are you ready for this? She asked. I showed her my phone. Dozens of messages from wedding guests, all FBI agents in disguise, confirming their positions for tomorrow. The only question, I said, is whether Mom will make it through her vows before the handcuffs come out. My phone buzzed one last time. Gabriel, we need to talk, early tomorrow, before the ceremony, please. He's scared, Victoria noted. He should be. I typed back, sure, church steps, 9 a.m., just us. Victoria raised an eyebrow. You're not really going alone? I smiled, thinking of the FBI surveillance team already in place. Of course not, but he doesn't need to know that. Tomorrow then, Victoria hugged me. The end of your mother's perfect facade. Tomorrow, I agreed, hanging up my maid of honor dress. The truth finally comes out. The church steps were empty when I arrived, except for Gabriel. He paced nervously, still in his street clothes, wedding tuxedo, presumably waiting at the hotel. I was afraid you wouldn't come, he said. You wanted to talk. I stayed at the bottom of the steps. So talk. Call it off, Hope. He descended toward me. Whatever you're planning, it's not worth it. Like Dad wasn't worth it? He flinched. That was complicated. Then uncomplicate it for me. I pressed the record button on my phone, making sure he saw me do it. Tell me exactly how you and Mom planned everything. You really want to know? His face hardened. Fine. Your mother hired me 2 years before I met you. The company was my audition. If I could help her hide the money, I could help her handle you. Handle me? You were getting too curious about your father's death, starting your journalism career, asking questions. He laughed bitterly. so she needed someone to distract you, keep you busy with romance, marriage plans, a future, while you helped her steal millions. Billions, he corrected. Those properties, just the tip of the iceberg. Your mother's been building this empire for decades. Your father figured it out, started gathering evidence, so you killed him. I didn't. He stepped closer, but I helped cover it up, just like I'll help cover up whatever happens to you if you don't back off. Is that a threat? It's a warning. He grabbed my arm. Your mother's already made arrangements. Food poisoning, they'll say. Tragic accident at the reception. I yanked free. You really think you'll get away with this? We already have. He smiled coldly. Multiple times. Got it all? I called out. Victoria emerged from behind a pillar, holding up her phone. Every word. Gabriel spun around. 2 FBI agents appeared from the church doorway. More emerged from parked cars. Gabriel Evans. Agent Sarah stepped forward, badge out. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and about dozen other charges we'll sort out down at the station. As they led him away in handcuffs, my phone rang. Mom, where are you? She demanded. The hairstylist is waiting. On my way, I said cheerfully. Just had to take care of something. See you soon. The next few hours passed in a blur of hair, makeup, and fake smiles. My mother was radiant in her wedding gown, completely unaware that half her guests were federal agents. You look beautiful, darling, she said, adjusting my emerald dress. Though you seem tense. Everything all right? Just excited for the ceremony, I smiled, especially the vows. She touched my cheek. I know this has been hard for you, but after today, we'll all be family again. One big happy family, I agreed. By the way, where's Gabriel? Isn't it bad luck for the bride to be alone before the wedding? A flicker of concern crossed her face. He's running late, last-minute errand. The church filled with guests. I stood at my mother's side, watching her grow increasingly agitated as time passed with no sign of Gabriel. Call him, she hissed. Can't. I showed her my phone. No service in here, but don't worry. I'm sure he'll turn up, unless something's keeping him busy. Her eyes narrowed. What did you do? The wedding march began to play. The doors opened, but instead of Gabriel, Agent Sarah walked down the aisle, followed by a team of FBI agents. Camilla Armstrong. Sarah's voice rang out through the church. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, money laundering. My mother turned to me, face contorted with rage. You little. Careful, Mom. I cut her off. Wouldn't want to ruin your makeup for the mugshot. As the agents led her away, I stepped to the altar. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid there's been a slight change of plans. But don't worry, I've prepared a speech. I pulled out a stack of documents. Once upon a time, there was a woman who would do anything for power, including murder her husband, steal billions of dollars, and manipulate her own daughter. This is the story of how she finally got caught. The real guests sat in shocked silence as I laid out everything. The fraud, the murder, the years of deception. Victoria recorded it all, live streaming to her news website. Mom always said everything happens for a reason, I concluded. I guess she was right. Because without her betrayal, I might never have discovered the truth. So thank you, Mom. This wedding really was unforgettable. Outside, reporters had already gathered. My mother and Gabriel were being led to separate police cars. Hope, she called out. I did everything for you, to protect you. I walked down the church steps, Victoria at my side. No, Mom. You did everything for yourself, and now you've lost everything, including me. What happens now? Victoria asked as we watched the police cars drive away. I removed my maid of honor dress, revealing a simple black outfit underneath. Now, we go write the story, all of it. And after that, I thought about the years of therapy ahead, the trials, the endless questions from family and friends. After that, I said, I finally get to live my own life, without their shadows hanging over me. Worth it? I watched my mother's police car disappear around the corner, every single second. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters, as the verdict was read. I sat in the front row, watching my mother's perfectly composed facade finally crack as the judge pronounced her sentence. 25 years, Victoria whispered, squeezing my hand. Gabriel, already convicted last week, had gotten 15 years for his role in the conspiracy. He'd tried to bargain for less by testifying against my mother, but the evidence we'd gathered had been more than enough. As the bailiff led my mother away, she turned to face me one last time. "I hope you're happy now," she spat. "I am," I said simply. "Dad would be too." Outside, microphones thrust in my face as reporters shouted questions. I held up my hand for silence. "Today, justice was served," I began. "Not just for my father, but for everyone hurt by Camilla Armstrong's crimes. The truth is, finally." A commotion interrupted me. Javier pushed through the crowd, looking desperate. "Hope, there's something you need to know." He thrust a USB drive into my hand. "I found this in your mother's private safe. It's about your father's company. There are more people involved, bigger names." Victoria grabbed my arm. "Hope, look." A black SUV had pulled up to the curb. Two men in suits stepped out, reaching into their jackets. "Inside, now." Agent Sarah appeared beside us, badge out. She hustled us back into the courthouse as shots rang out. In a secure room, surrounded by FBI agents, I plugged in the USB drive. Files populated the screen. Offshore accounts, shell companies, photographs of powerful people at secret meetings. "This goes higher than your mother," Sarah said, scrolling through the documents. "Way higher. Politicians, judges. They tried to kill us to keep this quiet," Victoria noted. I thought about my father, about how deep he must have dug to uncover this web of corruption, about how it had cost him his life. "So what do we do?" Javier asked. I pulled out my phone, dialing my editor's number. "We publish, all of it, right now. They'll come after you," Sarah warned. "They already are." I met her eyes. "But I'm not hiding anymore." Victoria pulled out her laptop. "I'll start uploading to every major news site. They can't stop us all." For the next few hours, we worked frantically, releasing documents, connecting dots, exposing names. My phone buzzed constantly, with messages from other journalists, whistleblowers, more witnesses coming forward. "Hope," Victoria called out, "you need to see this." She turned her laptop to show me a video playing on a news site. My mother, being led to prison transport, was speaking to reporters. "My daughter thinks she's won," she said, looking directly into the camera. "But she's just like me, ruthless, determined. I taught her well." I closed the laptop. "She's wrong. I'm nothing like her." "No," Victoria agreed. "You're better. You fought for truth, not power." My phone rang. "Atticus. Hope, I've arranged protection for you. Safe house. New identity, if needed." "No." I cut him off. "I'm not running. I'm finishing what my father started." By nightfall, the story had exploded. Armstrong scandal trended worldwide. More arrests were being made. The truth was spreading faster than anyone could contain it. In the FBI safe room, I watched the coverage with Victoria and Javier. "What happens tomorrow?" Javier asked. "Tomorrow," I smiled. "Tomorrow we keep digging, keep exposing, keep fighting." "They'll never stop coming after you," Sarah cautioned. "Good." I pulled up a new document on my laptop. "Because I'm never going to stop coming after them." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "What are you writing now?" "My next story." I showed her the title. "Beyond the Armstrong Scandal, the Hidden Web of Corporate Corruption." "Your mother said you're just like her," Victoria mused, determined to win at any cost. "The difference is," I said, beginning to type, "I'm not doing this for power or money. I'm doing it because it's right." My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I opened it to find a photo. My father's old desk at his company, with a note in his handwriting. "The truth always comes out." Dad knew, I realized. He knew they'd kill him, but he kept investigating anyway. "Like father, like daughter," Victoria smiled. Outside the courthouse, the sun had set on the day that changed everything. But for me, it felt like dawn. The beginning of something, not the end. Ready to get back to work? Victoria asked. I looked at my laptop, at the story waiting to be told, at the truth waiting to be revealed. Always, I said, and began to write. Because that's the thing about truth. It doesn't end with one story, one trial, one victory. It keeps going, keeps demanding to be told, keeps fighting to come into the light. And I would be there to tell it, one story at a time, until every shadow was exposed to the sun.
The crystal stemwork clinked as my future mother-in-law raised her glass, her perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around the base like talons. To family, she announced, her eyes sliding past me as if I were invisible. And to maintaining our standards. My name is Delilah, and I was about to marry into Boston's elite Sanders family. The engagement ring on my finger felt heavy as I lifted my own glass, forcing a smile that wouldn't crack under pressure. 6 years of climbing the corporate ladder had taught me how to keep my composure, even when I wanted to scream. The wine is excellent, Elisa, I offered, using my most professional voice, the one that had earned me my senior position at Morgan Stanley by age 29. Yes, it's a 82 Bordeaux. I doubt you've had the pleasure before. Elisa's smile didn't reach her eyes. Alex, darling, tell everyone about the new yacht club membership. My fiancé Alex squeezed my hand under the table. Actually, Mom, Delilah and I were thinking of spending that money on... Nonsense, Elisa cut in. The connections you'll make there are invaluable. Speaking of which, have you met Charles and Patricia's daughter? She just returned from finishing school in Switzerland. I took another sip of the admittedly excellent wine, remembering my mother's words from this morning. Kill them with kindness, honey, and remember who you are. The yacht club sounds wonderful, I said, surprising everyone at the table, including myself. I'd love to learn sailing. My firm actually closes quite a few deals on the water. Fletcher, Alex's father, perked up. You know, that's not a bad point. The Thompson deal last summer was sealed during a regatta. How resourceful, Elisa said, as if resourceful was a dirty word. She turned to their housekeeper. Marie, we're ready for the main course. As Marie served the perfectly cooked duck breast, I caught snippets of Elisa's whispered conversation with her friend Barbara at the other end of the table. Not exactly wife material. Can't expect Alex to... These ambitious types. The duck suddenly tasted like sawdust in my mouth. Alex was deep in conversation with his father about the family business, oblivious to the subtle warfare being waged across the fine china and crystal. Delilah, Elisa called out, her voice honey-sweet with poison. Tell us about your family. What does your father do again? My father passed when I was 12, I replied evenly. My mother raised me on her own, working as a high school teacher. She's the reason I got a full scholarship to Harvard. How inspiring, Elisa said, in a tone that suggested it was anything but. It must have been quite an adjustment, coming from such humble beginnings. Before I could respond, Alex jumped in. Mom, Delilah's one of the youngest senior advisors in her firm's history. She... Yes, very impressive, Elisa waved her hand dismissively. But running a household requires different skills entirely. Speaking of which, Barbara, how is your daughter's wedding planning coming along? I excused myself to the powder room, needing a moment to breathe. The marble countertop was cool under my palms as I leaned forward, studying my reflection in the gilt-edged mirror. My mother's features stared back at me, the same determined set of the jaw, the same fire in our eyes. I heard what Elisa said. A voice came from behind me. It was Fletcher, waiting in the hallway as I emerged. Don't let her get to you. She was the same way with my sister's husband at first. Now they're thick as thieves. Thank you, Fletcher, but I don't need... What you need, he interrupted gently, is to understand that Elisa's greatest weakness is her pride. She thinks she's protecting the family legacy. Prove her wrong, and you'll earn her respect. I straightened my shoulders, a plan already forming in my mind. The family business? I've heard there have been some concerns about the quarterly reports. Fletcher's eyebrows rose slightly. You've done your homework. I always do my homework. It's how I got here from those humble beginnings. He smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen all evening. Come to my office tomorrow. There are some numbers I'd like you to look at. Walking back to the dining room, I heard Elisa's voice floating through the open door. Just don't see it lasting. These marriages across social classes never do. I paused, my hand on the doorframe. In that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't fight Elisa's fire with fire. Instead, I would do what I did best: observe, analyze, and execute. By the time I was done, she would have no choice but to acknowledge my worth. Everything okay? Alex asked as I slid back into my seat. I smiled, genuine this time. Perfect. Actually, Fletcher just invited me to review some business documents tomorrow. I hope you don't mind if I stop by the office. Across the table, Elisa's fork clattered against her plate. The game was on. Fletcher's office smelled of leather and old money, with wood-paneled walls that had witnessed decades of deals and decisions. I settled into one of the visitor chairs, accepting the coffee his assistant had brought in. These are the last 4 quarterly reports, Fletcher said, spreading folders across his mahogany desk. The numbers look fine at first glance, but something feels off. I opened the first folder, my financial advisor instincts kicking in. Mind if I take notes? Please do. Alex speaks highly of your analytical skills. Speaking of Alex, he chose that moment to pop his head in. Dad, Mom's looking for— Oh, hey babe, you're here early. Just getting started, I said, already immersed in the columns of figures. Want to join us? He stepped in, closing the door behind him. Actually, I should warn you, Mom's not thrilled about this. She cornered me this morning, saying we shouldn't involve outsiders in family business. I invited her, Fletcher said firmly. And last I checked, I'm still CEO. I held up a hand, frowning at a particular line item. These operational costs seem inflated compared to industry standards. Who oversees this department? That would be Corey, our CFO, Alex replied, leaning over my shoulder. He's been with us forever. Mom practically considers him family. I made another note. And these vendor contracts? They're all through the same intermediary company? Fletcher's brow furrowed. Yes, Corey consolidated our supply chain last year. Said it would improve efficiency. Mind if I cross-reference these with market rates? I was already pulling up databases on my laptop. The numbers weren't adding up, but I needed more evidence before voicing my suspicions. A sharp knock interrupted us. Elisa burst in, perfectly coiffed even at 9 a.m. Fletcher, darling, I need you to— Oh. Her smile froze when she saw me. I wasn't aware we were having a family meeting. Just reviewing some reports, I said pleasantly, not looking up from my screen. These numbers are fascinating. I'm sure they are, she said coldly. Alex, the country club called. The membership committee is meeting today. Can't make it, Mom. I'm needed here. But, actually, I interrupted, turning my laptop around. You might want to see this, Elisa. These vendor markups are significantly above market rate. Has anyone audited these contracts? Corey handles all that, she dismissed. He's been managing our finances for 15 years. 15 years is a long time to go without fresh eyes, I murmured, pulling up another spreadsheet. Look at this pattern in the operational expenses. Despite herself, Elisa moved closer, peering at the screen. What pattern? These spikes in costs always occur right after major contract renewals, but there's no corresponding increase in output or revenue. Fletcher leaned forward. Are you suggesting— I'm not suggesting anything yet, I said carefully, but I'd like to dig deeper, if you'll let me. Absolutely not, Elisa snapped. Corey is family. I won't have some outsider coming in and— Mom, Alex cut in, his voice sharp. Look at the numbers. A tense silence filled the room. I could practically see the gears turning in Elisa's head as she struggled between her instinct to dismiss me and her business acumen. Fine, she finally said, but I want to be kept informed of everything you find. Of course, I agreed smoothly. I'll need access to the complete financial records for the past 5 years and any correspondence related to these vendor contracts. I'll have IT set you up, Fletcher said, reaching for his phone. Wait, Alex said suddenly. Maybe we should keep this quiet for now. If there really is something wrong— I nodded. Agreed. The fewer people who know I'm looking into this, the better. I still think this is unnecessary, Elisa protested, but I could hear the uncertainty creeping into her voice. Better unnecessary than sorry, I replied, meeting her eyes. Unless you'd prefer I walk away and leave these discrepancies unexplored? She held my gaze for a long moment before turning to Fletcher. Keep me updated. With that, she swept out of the office, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Well, Fletcher said, breaking the silence. That went better than expected. Alex squeezed my shoulder. You okay? I'm fine, I said, already back to scanning the reports. But something's definitely wrong here. These numbers don't lie. What's your next step? Fletcher asked. I closed my laptop, my mind racing with possibilities. I need to talk to your accounting team, separately, and without Corey knowing. I'll arrange it, Fletcher said. But be careful. If what you're suggesting is true, I know. I gathered my things, trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. Trust me, I know exactly what I'm doing. As I left the office, I caught a glimpse of Corey through his open door, laughing on the phone. He waved cheerfully as I passed. I waved back, my smile not reaching my eyes. The game had just gotten a lot more interesting and a lot more dangerous. Holy shit, Serena whispered, staring at the spreadsheets spread across my dining room table. This is like Enron-level sketchy. I poured us both another glass of wine. I know. Look at this transaction from last March. I pointed to a highlighted row. $1 million equipment purchase that doesn't show up anywhere in the inventory. And these shell companies? Serena adjusted her glasses, squinting at my laptop screen. All registered in the Cayman Islands, all established within the last 5 years. Having my best friend as a forensic accountant was proving invaluable. We'd been poring over the Sanders Company records for hours, and the picture getting clearer wasn't pretty. My phone buzzed. Alex. Mom asking questions about why you're accessing old records. Everything okay? Your future mother-in-law is getting antsy, I told Serena, typing a quick response. Just being thorough, have something to show you tomorrow. Serena leaned back, running her hands through her curly hair. Delilah, this is bigger than just cooking the books. These transactions, someone's been systematically siphoning money through fake vendors. And guess who oversees all vendor relationships? Corey, we said in unison. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Fletcher. Corey asked about your investigation. Said Elisa mentioned it. Be careful. Damn it, I muttered. So much for keeping this quiet. Serena gathered her papers into neat piles. You need to move fast. Once people like this know they're being investigated, they start covering their tracks, I finished. Or worse. A knock at my door made us both jump. I checked the peephole and relaxed. It's just Alex. He looked stressed as he entered, loosening his tie. Mom's on the warpath. She cornered me after dinner with Corey, demanding to know what you're finding. Perfect timing, I said, pulling him to the dining room. Serena, show him. For the next 20 minutes, we walked Alex through our discoveries. With each revelation, his face grew darker. That son of a bitch, he finally said, slumping in a chair. Mom treats him like family, and all this time... We need proof that's absolutely bulletproof, Serena said. No offense, but your mother seems like the type who won't believe it unless it's undeniable. None taken, Alex sighed. You should have heard her at dinner. Corey would never, and that girl is just trying to cause trouble. I pulled up another file. What about this? A wire transfer to a private account in Grand Cayman, authorized by Corey, dated 3 weeks ago. Serena leaned in. Can you trace where it went? Working on it, but look at the amount. $250,000. Same as the consulting fee listed in last month's expenses. Alex's phone chimed. His face went pale as he read the message. Corey just called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Says he has concerns about unauthorized access to sensitive documents. He's making his move, Serena said, trying to discredit you before you can expose him. I was already gathering the most damning evidence into a separate folder. Then we move now. Alex, call your father. Get him to your house. Serena, can you put together a quick presentation of what we found? On it, she said, fingers flying over her keyboard. Give me 30 minutes. What's your plan? Alex asked. We confront them tonight, all of them, before Corey can spin this his way. An hour later, we were pulling up to the Sanders mansion. Fletcher's car was already there, along with Elisa's Mercedes, and, my stomach tightened, Corey's BMW. Ready? Alex squeezed my hand. I grabbed my laptop and the folder of evidence. As I'll ever be. We found them in the living room. Elisa was pacing. Fletcher looked grim, and Corey was smiling like a cat who'd caught a canary. Ah, Delilah, he said smoothly. I was just explaining to Elisa my concerns about your unauthorized investigation. Funny, I replied, setting up my laptop. I was about to share my concerns about your unauthorized wire transfers. His smile flickered. Elisa stopped pacing. What wire transfers? Mom, sit down, Alex said firmly. You need to see this. For the next 20 minutes, we laid out everything. The fake vendors, the inflated costs, the offshore accounts. With each revelation, Corey's smile grew more strained, while Elisa's face went from skeptical to shocked to furious. This is absurd, Corey finally sputtered. These accusations are backed up by evidence, I cut in, pulling out my final document. Including this email from your private account to your contact at the bank in Grand Cayman, discussing how to structure the transfers to avoid detection. The room went deadly quiet. Then Fletcher spoke, his voice like ice. Corey, I think you should leave. Now. The police will be in touch. As security escorted him out, I caught Elisa staring at me, her expression unreadable. The real test was just beginning. The Sanders family lawyer, Jasper, arrived at dawn. We'd been up all night, combing through files and securing digital evidence. Elisa hadn't said a word to me since Corey's exit, but I could feel her eyes following my every move. The police have been notified, Jasper announced, setting his briefcase on the dining room table. But Corey's already gone. His house is empty. Empty? Fletcher's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. What do you mean, empty? I mean cleaned out. He must have been preparing for this possibility. I trusted him, Elisa whispered, her first words in hours. I let him into our home, our business, our lives. Alex touched her shoulder. Mom, we all did. Not all of us, she snapped, turning to me. You saw it right away, didn't you? Was this your plan all along, to prove how foolish I've been? Elisa, I said carefully. I saw it because it's my job to see these things. That's all. The question now, Jasper interrupted, is how we proceed. The company's reputation. A sharp knock at the door cut him off. 2 police detectives entered, led by the housekeeper. Mrs. Sanders? The female detective showed her badge. I'm Detective Roberts. We need to ask you some questions about Corey Holmes. What followed was 3 hours of detailed questioning. I watched Elisa's composure crack as she realized the full extent of Corey's betrayal. Each transaction we uncovered, each lie we exposed, seemed to age her years. And you discovered all this? Detective Roberts asked me. Initial discrepancies, I corrected. My friend Serena helped confirm the pattern. She's a forensic accountant. We'll need to speak with her, the male detective said, making notes. And get copies of everything you found. Jasper stepped in. I'll handle that. We want full cooperation with the investigation. What about the press? Fletcher asked. This will get out. Get ahead of it, I suggested. Everyone turned to look at me. Release a statement. The family discovered financial irregularities, investigated, and immediately reported them. Show strength and transparency. She's right, Jasper said. I can have a statement ready within the hour. No, Elisa stood up. I'll make the statement. I trusted him. I vouched for him. This is my responsibility. Alex started to protest, but I caught his arm. Let her. The detectives left with copies of our evidence. Jasper retreated to the study to draft documents. Fletcher went to call an emergency board meeting. I need air, Elisa announced suddenly, heading for the garden. After a moment's hesitation, I followed. I found her by the rose bushes she'd proudly shown off at my first visit to the house. She didn't turn around as I approached. You must be enjoying this, she said quietly. Why would I enjoy watching my future mother-in-law in pain? She laughed bitterly. Because I've been horrible to you. Because I dismissed you, judged you, tried to push you away. True, I admitted. But that's not why I did this. Then why? She finally turned to face me. Because it was the right thing to do. Because this company will be part of my family too. Because despite what you think of me, I care about protecting what matters to Alex. And to me? Her voice cracked. What do you think matters to me? Legacy, I said simply. Pride, family, the same things that matter to me. A long silence stretched between us, broken only by the distant sound of traffic. I have to make a statement to the press, she finally said. Tell everyone how blind I've been. No, I corrected. You have to tell them how strong you are, how you won't let anyone betray this family's trust, how you're going to make this right. She studied me for a long moment. Help me write it? Before I could answer, Alex burst into the garden. Corey just called the office. He's threatening to go to the media with dirt on the family unless we drop the charges. What dirt? Elisa demanded. He wouldn't say, just that he's been keeping records of everything for years. I saw the fear flash across Elisa's face, quickly replaced by anger. That snake. After everything we did for him. What do you want to do? I asked her directly. She straightened her shoulders, and for the first time, I saw the steel that had helped her build this empire. We fight. We tell the truth before he can spin his lies. Will you help me? Of course, I said. Alex looked between us, surprised by this sudden alliance. Good, Elisa said, already walking back to the house, because if he wants a war, we'll give him one. And Delilah? She paused at the door. Thank you for protecting our family. Our family. The words hung in the air as we followed her inside, ready to face whatever storm was coming. The newsroom lights were blinding, but Elisa didn't flinch. We'd spent hours preparing for this moment, rehearsing her statement until every word was perfect. The Sanders Group has always stood for integrity, she began, her voice steady. When we discovered financial irregularities, we took immediate action. I watched from the wings with Alex and Fletcher as she delivered the statement we'd crafted. No denials, no excuses, just strength and accountability. My phone buzzed. A text from Serena. Turn on Channel 7 now. I pulled out my tablet and opened the live stream. There was Corey on a rival network speaking to a reporter. Alex, I whispered urgently, showing him the screen. His face darkened as Corey's words became clear. Systematic corruption within the Sanders family, Corey was saying. Elisa Sanders personally approved numerous questionable transactions. Fletcher saw it too. That lying bastard. Wait, I said, noticing something. Look at the documents he's holding up. Those signatures. Elisa was wrapping up her statement when we hurried her off stage. In the green room, I pulled up the competing broadcast. He's forged your signatures, I explained, zooming in on the documents. But he made a mistake. Look at the dates. Elisa leaned closer. July 15th, 2022, but I was in France, Alex finished. Mom, you were at my cousin's wedding. We have photos, videos, dozens of witnesses. Get me Jasper, Elisa snapped, already pulling out her phone. And call the FBI. This isn't just theft anymore, it's forgery and fraud. The next few hours were a blur of lawyers, federal agents, and reporters. By evening, we were back at the Sanders mansion, watching the news coverage unfold. Sources say former CFO Corey Holmes may have falsified documents, the anchor was saying when the doorbell rang. Marie showed in Detective Roberts, looking grimmer than before. Mrs. Sanders, we found something you need to see. She laid out a series of photographs on the coffee table. They showed Corey meeting with known criminals, dating back years. This goes beyond corporate fraud, she explained. We believe Mr. Holmes has connections to organized crime. The FBI is taking over the investigation. Elisa sank into her chair. All these years, right under my nose. Mom, don't, Alex started, but she held up her hand. No, I need to face this. My pride, my certainty that I could never be fooled. That's what allowed this to happen. Mrs. Sanders, Detective Roberts said gently, you're not the first person to be deceived by someone they trusted. But right now, we need to know if you've received any threats. As if on cue, Elisa's phone chimed. Her face went pale as she read the message. What is it? Fletcher demanded. Corey, she whispered. He says if we don't withdraw our accusations by midnight, he'll release everything. Says we don't know what he's really capable of. That's it, Detective Roberts said, already on her radio. We're putting a protective detail on your family. No, Elisa protested. I won't be intimidated in my own home. Actually, I said slowly, an idea forming, maybe we should let him think he's won. Everyone turned to look at me. What do you mean? Alex asked. He's desperate, making mistakes. If he thinks we're backing down, he might get careless, Detective Roberts finished, nodding. It could work. Absolutely not, Fletcher argued. It's too dangerous. More dangerous than waiting for him to make good on his threats? I countered. We need to end this now. Elisa stood up suddenly. She's right, and I know exactly how to do it. She turned to Detective Roberts. Can you get a message to him through back channels? Make him think I'm willing to negotiate? Mom, no, Alex protested. Yes, she said firmly. I let him into this family. I'll be the one to take him down. The detective made some calls while we worked out the details. By midnight, the trap was set. The message has been delivered, Detective Roberts confirmed. He thinks you're willing to meet tomorrow to discuss terms. And the FBI team is ready? I asked. She nodded. They'll be in position before dawn. As the detective left to brief her team, Elisa caught my arm. Why are you doing this? After how I treated you. Because that's what family does, I said simply. We protect each other. She studied me for a long moment. I was wrong about you. About a lot of things. Save the apologies for after we catch him, I said, managing a smile. Right now, we need to prepare for tomorrow. Tomorrow, she agreed, her voice hardening, when Corey learns what happens when you threaten the Sanders family. Looking at her then, I finally understood where Alex got his strength, and for the first time, I felt truly proud to be joining this family. The old boathouse creaked in the pre-dawn breeze. I adjusted my earpiece, trying to look casual as I pretended to check my phone. The FBI team had wired both Elisa and me, with agents positioned around the marina. Target approaching from the south entrance, a voice crackled in my ear. Remember, I whispered to Elisa, keep him talking. We need a confession. She nodded, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. We'd chosen this location carefully, public enough to be safe, private enough for Corey to feel comfortable talking. The door opened, and there he was. Corey looked different now, unshaven, wearing wrinkled clothes, his usual polished appearance gone. But his smile was the same, dripping with false warmth. Elisa, he said smoothly. And Delilah. I should have known you'd be here. Sit down, Corey, Elisa said coldly. He pulled up a chair, setting his briefcase on the table between us. I assume you've considered my offer? You mean your threat? I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Now, he chided. I prefer to think of it as mutual protection. I keep certain information private. You drop the charges. Simple. Elisa leaned forward. What information, Corey? What could you possibly have? Oh, come now. He opened his briefcase, pulling out a folder. Let's start with the Winston deal from 2019. Those signatures you backdated. I never backdated anything, Elisa snapped. Really? He slid a document across the table. Because I have proof suggesting otherwise, and that's just the beginning. I studied the paper, fighting back a smile. The signature was clearly forged, and not even well. These are fake, I said flatly. Prove it. His smile widened. But while you're trying, the media will have a field day. The great Sanders family, caught in a web of fraud and corruption. Your reputation will be destroyed before you can prove anything. Like you destroyed our trust? Elisa's voice shook with real emotion. I treated you like family. Family? He laughed harshly. You treated me like a servant who got above his station. For 15 years, I watched you live in luxury while I did all the real work. So you decided to steal from us? I decided to take what I deserved. His composure cracked. Do you know how easy it was? Setting up those shell companies, inflating those contracts? You never even looked closely at the numbers. Your precious family pride made you blind. I pressed the button on my phone, stopping the recording. Thank you, Corey. That was exactly what we needed. His face went pale as FBI agents emerged from their hiding spots. You set me up? No, Elisa said, standing as an agent moved to cuff him. You set yourself up. Every theft, every lie, every betrayal, those were your choices. You'll regret this, he snarled. When the media hears... What? I interrupted. Your lies about Elisa? We've already proven the forgeries. Or maybe about your connections to organized crime. The FBI is very interested in those. His face went from pale to ashen. How did you... Like I said, Elisa's voice was steel. You betrayed family. Did you really think we wouldn't fight back? As the agents led him away, I heard him shout, This isn't over! Actually, Detective Roberts said, approaching us, it is. We found his laptop at a storage unit. Everything's there, records of the theft, the forged documents, even emails to his criminal contacts. He's looking at serious time. Elisa sagged slightly, and I caught her arm. Let's get you home. The drive back to the mansion was quiet. Fletcher and Alex were waiting in the driveway, along with Jasper. It's done, I told them as we got out of the car. We got his confession on tape. Alex hugged me tight, then his mother. Are you okay? No, Elisa admitted. But I will be. She turned to Jasper. What's next? The FBI will handle the criminal case, he explained. We need to focus on damage control and recovering the stolen funds. I can help with that, I offered. I know where to look now that we have access to his records. Elisa touched my arm. You've done more than enough. This mess. I created it with my pride and my refusal to see what was right in front of me. It's time I fixed it myself. We'll fix it together, Fletcher said firmly. As a family. Speaking of family, Alex said, taking my hand, maybe now we can focus on happier things, like a wedding? I looked at Elisa, waiting for her reaction. To my surprise, she smiled, a real warm smile that reached her eyes. Yes, she said softly. I think it's time we celebrated adding a new member to our family, if she'll still have us after all this drama. Are you kidding? I laughed. After this, I know exactly what I'm getting into, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across the driveway. Sometimes, I realized, the strongest families are forged in fire. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's proving yourself worthy of the very people who doubted you. The boardroom buzzed with tension as we prepared for the emergency shareholders meeting. 2 weeks had passed since Corey's arrest, and now came the hard part, facing the consequences. Ready? Alex squeezed my hand under the table. Before I could answer, the doors opened and people began filing in. I recognized most of them, major shareholders, board members, family friends. Their expressions ranged from concerned to openly hostile. Elisa stood at the head of the table, every inch the commanding presence she'd always been. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. As if we had a choice, someone muttered from the back. The company's stock has dropped 15%, another voice called out. We deserve answers. Elisa raised her hand for silence. You'll get them. But first, I'd like to introduce someone. She gestured to me. Delilah Jensen, my future daughter-in-law, who uncovered the fraud that threatened this company. All eyes turned to me. I stood, smoothing my skirt. What I found wasn't just fraud. It was a systematic attempt to hollow out this company from within. And where were the controls that should have prevented this? An older board member demanded. Where was the oversight? That responsibility was mine, Elisa said firmly. I trusted the wrong person. But now, we're going to show you exactly how we're making it right. I clicked my laptop and the presentation Serena and I had prepared filled the screen behind us. The FBI has already frozen most of the stolen assets. We've traced approximately 80% of the funds. And the other 20%, someone asked? Is why I'm here, a new voice said. Jasper walked in, carrying a stack of documents. We've filed civil suits against all the shell companies involved. The recovery process is already underway. For the next hour, we laid out our recovery plan in detail. With each slide, each explanation, I could feel the mood in the room shifting from anger to cautious optimism. But the real question, Elisa continued, is how we prevent this from ever happening again, which is why I'm proposing a new oversight committee. Murmurs filled the room as she outlined the structure: independent auditors, regular reviews, transparent reporting. And who will lead this committee? A shareholder asked. I will, I said, standing again. With the board's approval, of course. The room erupted in discussion. I caught fragments of conversations. But she's not even family yet. Found the fraud in the first place. Fresh perspective might be exactly... Fletcher stood up. I moved to vote on the proposal. Seconded, Alex called out. The next few minutes were tense as the votes were counted. I felt Elisa's hand on my shoulder, surprising me with its warmth. The motion passes, Jasper announced, with 78% in favor. The relief in the room was palpable. As people began to file out, many stopped to shake my hand or offer congratulations. Well done, Fletcher said, clapping me on the back. Both of you. Elisa was speaking with the last few board members when her assistant rushed in, looking pale. Ma'am, you need to see this. Corey's wife is on the news. We crowded around a tablet, watching the live broadcast. Margaret, Corey's wife of 20 years, was speaking through tears. The Sanders family destroyed my husband. Their greed, their manipulation. Turn it off, Elisa said sharply. No, I countered. We need to hear this. They're trying to pin everything on him, but the truth will come out. Alex swore under his breath. She's trying to spin it. Let her try, I said, already pulling out my phone. Jasper, release the evidence packets to the media. All of them. That's everything we have, he warned. Exactly. Total transparency. Let the public see the truth. Elisa nodded slowly. Do it. Within hours, the story had shifted. News channels were running segments showing the evidence trail, the forged documents, the offshore accounts. Margaret's accusations were buried under an avalanche of facts. I never thought I'd say this, Elisa said as we watched the coverage from her office. But I'm grateful you didn't listen to me when I tried to push you away. Funny how things work out, I replied, accepting the glass of whiskey she offered. You know, she said, settling into her chair, I always thought protecting this family meant keeping outsiders at bay. I never considered that sometimes protection comes from letting the right people in. A knock at the door interrupted us. Alex entered, grinning. Just got word from the FBI. They found the rest of the money. All of it. Really? Elisa brightened. Really. And there's more. Corey's agreed to plead guilty. No trial, no more media circus. I raised my glass. To justice? To family, Elisa corrected, touching her glass to mine. And to the daughter-in-law who taught me what that really means. Looking at her then, I realized we'd both won something more valuable than any corporate victory. We'd found understanding, respect, and maybe even love. The sun was setting over Boston, casting long shadows through the office windows, and for the first time since this all began, I felt completely at peace. Something old, something new, my mother said, adjusting my veil in the bridal suite. Something borrowed, something blue. The old is Grandma's pearls, Serena counted off on her fingers. The new is the dress. The blue is the sapphire bracelet from Alex. And the borrowed? I asked, smoothing my dress. The door opened and Elisa stepped in, holding a small velvet box. This, if you'll accept it. Inside was a delicate diamond hair clip that caught the light like captured stars. It was my mother's, she explained. She wore it at my wedding, and I wore it at mine. My throat tightened as she carefully pinned it into my hair. Through the mirror, I could see my mother watching with tears in her eyes. Perfect, Elisa said softly. Now you truly look like a Sanders woman. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Fletcher poked his head in. "They're ready for you, and there's something you should see first." We followed him to a window overlooking the church entrance. A small group of reporters had gathered, held back by security. "Is that—" I squinted at a familiar face. "Margaret," Elisa confirmed grimly. "Corey's wife. Still trying to cause trouble, even today." I turned to face my future mother-in-law. "What do you want to do?" She straightened my veil, a determined glint in her eye. "We're going to walk out there with our heads high. Let them see what real family loyalty looks like." The ceremony passed in a blur of emotions and promises. When Alex kissed me, the church erupted in applause. But the real test waited outside. As we emerged into the sunlight, Margaret stepped forward, a reporter at her side. "Mrs. Sanders," the reporter called out, "any comment on the allegations that your family—" "Actually," I interrupted, "I have a comment." Alex squeezed my hand as I continued. "Today isn't about the past. It's about family, all kinds of family, the ones we're born into and the ones we choose." "But the accusations," Margaret started. "Are over," Elisa cut in, stepping to my side. "Just like your husband's attempts to destroy what we've built. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a celebration to attend." At the reception, Fletcher clinked his glass for attention. "A toast to the newest member of our family. Delilah, when you first came into our lives, we thought we were gaining a daughter. Instead, we gained something far more valuable, a protector, a truth-teller, and a reminder that real strength isn't about keeping people out, but letting the right ones in." "Hear, hear," the crowd raised their glasses. Later, during the father-daughter dance, my mom appeared at my shoulder. "May I cut in?" As we swayed to the music, she whispered, "Remember when you called me, terrified about meeting his family? Look at you now." I glanced across the room where Elisa was showing my aunt photos on her phone, both of them laughing. "Things change. People change," my mother corrected, "when they're brave enough to let themselves." The evening wound down, and Alex and I prepared to leave for our honeymoon. But first, Elisa pulled me aside. "I have something for you," she said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a contract making me full partner in the family business, backdated to the day I exposed Corey's fraud. "I don't understand," I said. "The oversight committee position was just the beginning. You proved yourself not just capable, but essential. The board voted unanimously." "Even you?" I couldn't help asking. She smiled, the warm, genuine smile that had become increasingly familiar. "Especially me. You taught me something valuable, Delilah. True power isn't about control, it's about trust." "Thank you," I whispered, hugging her impulsively. "No," she said firmly. "Thank you. For saving our company, our family name, and—" she paused. "For showing me I could be wrong about someone in the best possible way." As Alex and I drove away, rice still falling from our clothes, I thought about power, pride, and the unexpected ways life teaches us lessons. I'd come into this family wanting revenge against a woman who judged me, but I'd found something better: understanding, respect, and a place where I truly belonged. "Happy?" Alex asked, taking my hand. Through the rearview mirror, I could see our families waving goodbye. My mother and Elisa standing side by side, Fletcher with his arm around them both, Serena throwing one last handful of rice. "More than happy," I replied. "I'm home." The city lights of Boston twinkled around us as we drove toward our future, and I realized that sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's proving that love, truth, and family are stronger than any prejudice or pride. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating your enemies, but in turning them into family.
The first time I defied my father, I was 7 years old. Instead of practicing piano scales like a proper Montgomery daughter, I composed my own melody, a childish tune about butterflies and rain. When he caught me, his disappointment echoed through our mansion's music room louder than any symphony. "That's not how a Montgomery succeeds," he said, closing the piano lid over my small fingers. "I'm Noelle, and 23 years later, I'm still composing my own melodies, still disappointing Edward Montgomery." The day everything changed, I was sitting at that same piano, my fingers dancing across ivory keys that had witnessed countless family arguments, The piece I played was my latest composition. Something raw and rebellious that would have made my father's perfectly groomed mustache twitch. Not this again. His voice boomed from the doorway. The company meeting starts in 20 minutes. You should be there, not wasting time with this nonsense. I kept playing, letting the music speak for me. The melody grew darker, angrier. Noel. His shoes clicked against the hardwood floor as he approached. You're 30 years old. It's time to grow up and take your place in Montgomery Furnishings. My fingers slammed the final chord. My place? You mean designing catalogs and attending boring board meetings? It's your legacy, he said, as if that explained everything. My legacy is music. I stood up, meeting his steel gray eyes. I've been offered a chance to perform in Paris. Real venues, real audiences. Paris? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. And what about the business? Your sister Marin can't handle everything alone. Marin loves the business. I don't. I never have. You're choosing street performances over your family's century-old legacy? His voice dropped to that dangerous quiet I remembered from childhood. Think carefully about this, Noel. I already have. I pulled an envelope from my bag, my one-way ticket to Paris. I leave next week. He stepped closer, towering over me like he did when I was 7. If you walk out that door, don't expect to come back. No trust fund, no safety net, no family name to fall back on. Dad, please, no. He held up his hand. You're either a Montgomery or you're not. Choose. My best friend Paris's words from last night echoed in my head. Sometimes family is just people you share DNA with. Real family supports your dreams. I grabbed my sheet music from the piano. Then I guess I'm not a Montgomery anymore. Noelle. Marin appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide. You can't be serious. I am. I hugged her quickly, breathing in her familiar lavender perfume. I'm sorry, but I have to do this. You'll regret this. My father called as I walked away. When you're struggling on some Parisian street corner, remember? You chose this. I paused at the door, my hand trembling on the knob. No, Dad. You chose this. You're the one making me pick between my passion and my family. That's on you. The last thing I saw was Marin's tears and my father's rigid back as he faced the window. The last thing I heard was the heavy thud of the front door closing behind me. Outside, the spring air felt electric with possibility. My phone buzzed. A text from Paris Walker, my namesake friend who'd been performing in France for years. Did you do it? Are you finally free? I took one last look at the Montgomery mansion with its perfectly manicured lawns and imposing columns. The place where I'd spent 30 years trying to fit into someone else's dream. It's done, I texted back. No more Montgomery Furnishings, no more disappointed father, just music. Good girl, Paris replied. Your room in Montmartre is ready whenever you are. Time to show Paris what you're made of. I smiled, already hearing new melodies in my head. Songs of rebellion, freedom, and the bittersweet taste of choosing yourself over family expectations. A week later, I boarded a plane with nothing but my music sheets, a small suitcase, and the determination to prove my father wrong. As the aircraft lifted off, I started humming that childhood tune about butterflies and rain. Only now it had evolved into something else. A song about spreading wings and flying away from golden cages. What I didn't know then was that sometimes leaving isn't really an ending. Sometimes it's just the first note of a much longer composition. One that would eventually bring me full circle, face to face with everything I thought I was leaving behind. But that's getting ahead of the story. First, I had to learn how to survive on those Parisian street corners my father had sneered about. And surprisingly, that turned out to be the easy part. You're holding back again, Paris said, tapping her foot against the cobblestones of Montmartre. That piece needs more anger, more passion. You're playing it like you're still sitting in Daddy's music room. 6 months into my Parisian adventure, and I was learning that freedom came with its own kind of pressure. The morning crowd gathered around us, tossing euros into Paris's open violin case as we performed our daily street concert. I'm trying, I said, flexing my fingers above my portable keyboard. It's just nothing. Paris tucked a strand of purple hair behind her ear. You left everything behind to be here. Show them why. She was right. I closed my eyes and started again, letting my fingers tell the story I'd been holding back. The melody grew wilder, darker, filling the square with the sound of breaking chains and burning bridges. Now that's what I'm talking about. Paris joined in with her violin, our instruments dancing together in a duet that made tourists stop and stare. A man in a charcoal blazer lingered at the edge of the crowd, scribbling in a small notebook. I'd seen him before, watching our performances with intense focus. As the final notes faded, applause erupted around us. The man in the blazer approached while others dropped money into our cases. "Magnificent," he said, his English carrying a slight French accent. "I'm Jacoby Kelly, music critic for Le Monde," Paris interrupted. "We know who you are. You've been watching us for weeks." He smiled, unfazed. "I'm particularly interested in your original compositions, Noelle. They have a unique, what's the word? Raw authenticity." "Thanks," I said, packing up my keyboard. "But if you're looking for the next classical prodigy, I'm not it." "No," he agreed. "You're something far more interesting. Would you join me for coffee? Both of you?" Paris and I exchanged glances. She shrugged. Café Deux Moulins is right around the corner. Over espresso and croissants, Jacoby leaned forward. "Tell me, why does a Montgomery play street music in Paris?" My cup clattered against its saucer. "How did you—" "I do my research. Your father's furniture empire is well known, even here." "Was well known," I corrected. "I'm not part of that anymore." Clearly. His dark eyes studied me. "But that anger, that rebellion in your music, it's still about him, isn't it?" Paris kicked me under the table, but I ignored her warning look. "My music is about freedom." "Is it?" Jacoby pulled out his notebook. "Because what I hear is a conversation with absence. Every note asks, 'Are you listening now, Father?'" "That's enough," Paris interrupted. "We didn't come here for psychoanalysis." "No," he agreed. "You came because I can help. I'm curating a series of performances at Le Petit Journal. Underground classical fusion, breaking boundaries, challenging expectations. Your style would fit perfectly." My heart raced. Le Petit Journal was a legendary jazz club where real musicians performed, not street artists like us. "What's the catch?" Paris asked. "No catch. Just an opportunity to be heard by the right people." He slid his card across the table. "Think about it." After he left, Paris grabbed my arm. "This is it, your chance to prove everyone wrong." But I was staring at my phone, at a news alert I'd set up months ago. Montgomery Furnishings reports third quarter losses. "Noelle?" Paris waved her hand in front of my face. "Earth to Noelle." "Sorry, it's just—" I showed her the article. "Looks like Daddy Dearest isn't doing so well without his daughters." "Good," Paris said firmly. "Let him struggle. Focus on this opportunity instead." But something twisted in my stomach. Not quite guilt, not quite satisfaction. Maybe Jacoby was right about my music being a conversation with absence. That evening, I practiced in our tiny apartment, trying to capture that raw energy from the morning's performance. Paris sat cross-legged on her bed, violin in lap. "You know what your problem is?" she said suddenly. "You're still playing for him. Even here. Even now." "I am not." "You are. But maybe—" She grinned mischievously. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing." "What do you mean?" "Think about it. Le Petit Journal gets written up in all the major papers, international reviews. If you really want to show Daddy Dearest what he lost." I stopped playing, the possibility taking shape in my mind. "You're terrible." "I'm brilliant," she corrected. "Call Jacoby. Take the gig. Show the world what happens when you try to cage a Montgomery." I reached for my phone, then hesitated. What if he's right? What if I'm just nothing? Paris said, echoing her words from this morning. You're not that scared 7-year-old anymore. You're an artist. It's time everyone knew it. Especially your father. I dialed Jacoby's number, my fingers steady on the keys. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's dream. It's about building your own, right where they can see it. Surprise! Marin's voice rang through our tiny Montmartre apartment, making me drop my coffee mug. It shattered on the floor, dark liquid spreading like spilled secrets across the tiles. What are you? How did you? I stammered, staring at my sister standing in the doorway, her designer outfit completely out of place among our bohemian decor. Paris gave me your address, she said, dropping her Gucci bag on our secondhand couch. Don't be mad at her, I practically begged. I shot Paris a betrayed look as she emerged from her room. She shrugged. Family drama makes for better music. You'll thank me later. I doubt that, I muttered, grabbing paper towels to clean up the mess. Why are you here, Marin? My sister's perfectly maintained smile faltered. Can't I visit my big sister? After a year of radio silence, try again. Marin sank onto the couch, suddenly looking exhausted. The business is failing, Noelle. Really failing this time. I know. I read the reports. I kept wiping the floor, avoiding her eyes. No, you don't understand. Dad's losing everything. The main factory, the showrooms, even the house might have to go up for sale. That made me stop. The house? But it's been in the family for 4 generations, yes. Marin leaned forward. We need help. Fresh ideas, new marketing strategies, something to attract younger clients. And Dad sent you to ask for my help? I laughed bitterly. That doesn't sound like him. He doesn't know I'm here. She twisted her wedding ring nervously. But I've seen your performances online. The videos from Le Petit Journal? You're making waves, Noelle. People are talking about your music, your style. So? So we need that. That energy, that modern edge. She stood up, pacing our small living room. The furniture business is dying because it's stuck in the past, just like Dad. Paris, who'd been unusually quiet, spoke up. Your sister's about to have her first major solo concert. Critics are flying in from all over Europe. This isn't exactly the best timing. Or maybe it's perfect timing, Marin countered. Think about it. All those influential people in one place? We could turn it into an event. Showcase some pieces, blend art with furniture design. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. You want me to turn my concert into a furniture sale? I want you to help save our family's legacy. Our legacy? My voice rose. Where was this family loyalty when Dad cut me off? When you all stopped returning my calls? Marin's face crumpled. I was wrong, okay? We were all wrong. But this isn't about Dad's pride anymore. There are 300 employees who could lose their jobs, real families who depend on us. The room fell silent except for the distant sound of street musicians below. Paris touched my arm gently. Maybe you should hear her out. You can't be serious. Think about it, she said. You wanted revenge? What better revenge than swooping in to save the day? Make Dad admit he needs the daughter he rejected? A knock at the door interrupted us. Jacoby stood there looking surprised at our little gathering. Bad time? Perfect time, Paris said before I could speak. We were just discussing Noelle's upcoming concert. Ah, yes. He smiled, entering the room. The buzz is building. I've had calls from critics in London and Berlin who want to attend. Marin's eyes lit up. See? This is exactly what I mean. We could... Marin, please. I rubbed my temples. Jacoby, this is my sister. She's here to recruit me for a family business intervention. His eyebrows rose. The Montgomery furniture empire? I read about their troubles. Fascinating situation. There's nothing fascinating about watching your father's life work crumble. Marin snapped. No? Jacoby settled into our reading chair. A traditional business facing modern challenges, a prodigal daughter finding success in exile, and now a potential redemption arc? Sounds like quite the story to me. This isn't a story, I said. This is my life. Everything's a story, Noelle. The question is, how do you want this one to end? I looked around the room, at Marin's hopeful face, Paris's knowing smirk, Jacoby's analytical gaze. The coffee stain on the floor had dried into a dark pattern, like a musical note. I need air, I announced, grabbing my jacket. Don't follow me. But of course Paris did anyway, catching up to me on the stairs. You know you're going to help them. Am I? Yes, because you're still that little girl at the piano trying to make Daddy proud. Only now you can do it on your terms. I stopped, turning to face her. What if I fail? What if you succeed? She grinned. What if you save the business and prove that following your dreams wasn't a mistake? Now that would be a melody worth playing. Above us, I could hear Marin and Jacoby's voices drifting down the stairwell, already discussing possibilities. My upcoming concert suddenly felt like a crossroads, a chance to either bury the past or transform it into something new. Fine, I said, but we do this my way. Paris linked her arm through mine. I wouldn't expect anything less from a Montgomery. The last person I expected to see at Le Petit Journal was my father, yet there he stood in the dimly lit club, looking as out of place as a penguin in the Sahara. His perfectly pressed suit contrasted sharply with the venue's bohemian atmosphere. He's been here for 20 minutes, Paris whispered as I prepared for my set. Hasn't touched his wine, just keeps staring at the stage like it might bite him. How did he even know? Marin, we said simultaneously. I peeked through the curtain again. Dad sat rigidly at a front table while Jacoby chatted animatedly beside him. The critic caught my eye and winked, clearly enjoying the drama he'd helped orchestrate. Ladies and gentlemen, the club owner announced, please welcome to our stage, Noelle. The spotlight hit me as I walked to the piano. My father's face remained impassive, but his knuckles whitened around his untouched wine glass. I began with my newest piece, one I'd composed after Marin's visit. The melody started soft, questioning, then built into something fierce and demanding. In the front row, Jacoby nodded approvingly, scribbling in his ever-present notebook. When the final note faded, the crowd erupted in applause. Everyone except my father, who stood abruptly and headed for the exit. Oh, no you don't, I muttered, grabbing the microphone. This next piece is dedicated to my father, who's trying to leave early. Dad, this one's called Golden Cage. He froze mid-step. The audience turned to look at him, and social pressure forced him back to his seat. The song poured out of me. All the anger, all the love, all the complicated years between us. When I finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the house, except his. Quite a performance, he said afterward, approaching the stage while the crowd dispersed. Very emotional. That's kind of the point of music, Dad. Yes, well. He straightened his tie. Marin tells me you might be interested in helping the business. Marin talks too much. She also mentioned you're drawing quite a crowd these days. International attention. I started packing up my sheet music. Just say what you came to say. Fine. He pulled out a chair, sitting with military precision. We're hosting a gala next month. Potential investors, key clients, media. We need something different. Something to show we're adapting to modern tastes. And you want me to perform? I laughed. What happened to wasting time with nonsense? Things change. His jaw tightened. The market changes. We need to change with it. Or what? The company dies? People lose their jobs, he snapped. Families suffer? Is that what you want? Jacoby materialized beside us, notebook in hand. Fascinating proposition. The prodigal daughter returns to save the family business through art. The press would love it. Stay out of this, Dad and I said simultaneously. See? Already in sync. Jacoby smiled. Think about it, Noelle. Your music, your terms, your chance to prove everyone wrong. This isn't about proving anything. Dad protested. Isn't it? I challenged. You're here because you need me. because everything you dismissed as worthless might actually save your precious legacy. I'm here because you're my daughter. Now you remember that? Paris appeared with my coat. Sorry to interrupt this touching family reunion, but Noelle has an interview with Radio France in 30 minutes. Dad stood, straightening his cuffs. The gala is on the 15th. Marin has the details. Your choice if you want to participate. As he turned to leave, I called out, "If I do this, it's my way. My music, my vision, no compromises." He paused. You always were stubborn. I learned from the best. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. The 15th, Noelle. Don't be late. After he left, Paris hugged me from behind. You're going to do it, aren't you? Maybe. I leaned into her embrace. But not for him. For revenge? Jacoby asked, still taking notes. For myself. I touched the piano keys one last time. And for that little girl who just wanted to make her own music. Well, Paris grinned, if we're going to save a furniture empire through the power of piano, we better start planning. I'm thinking dramatic lighting, multimedia displays. And perhaps, Jacoby added, a story about family, forgiveness, and finding your way home. I picked up my bag, feeling the weight of the decision settling on my shoulders. No, not home. Sometimes you have to break everything down to build something better. Now that, Jacoby said, closing his notebook with a flourish, is a headline I can work with. Outside, the Paris night sparkled with possibility. Somewhere across the city, my father was probably already regretting his offer. But it was too late. The stage was set. The players in position. Time to compose a new ending to this family drama. This is a disaster, Marin declared, pacing the rehearsal space we'd rented near the Champs-Élysées. The gala is in 2 weeks, and you want to do what? Transform the showroom into an interactive musical experience, I repeated, watching her face contort. Each piece of furniture will have its own musical theme, playing when people approach. Dad doesn't have a choice. I gestured to the mood boards Paris and I had created. The old way isn't working. You said it yourself. Jacoby lounged on a prototype chair we'd borrowed from the showroom, taking notes as usual. She's right, you know. The concept is brilliant. Luxury furniture meets avant-garde performance art. But, Marin started. But nothing. A new voice interrupted. We turned to see a young woman in a sharp blazer standing in the doorway. I think it's exactly what we need. And you are? I asked. Laura McCarthy, your father's new marketing director. She strode in, heels clicking purposefully. I've been trying to convince the board to try something revolutionary, but they won't listen to me. They might listen to you. They didn't listen to me for 30 years. Why start now? Because now you have leverage. She smiled sharply. And because I've seen your performances, you understand something they don't. Emotion sells. Paris picked up her violin. Show her what we've been working on. I sat at the piano while Paris positioned herself near the furniture displays. The melody began softly, almost traditionally, before morphing into something more contemporary. As the music shifted, Paris moved between the pieces, each segment of the song highlighting different furniture styles. See? I explained as we finished. Each piece gets its own musical identity. Modern meets classical, just like the furniture meets contemporary design. It's perfect, Laura breathed. But there's one problem. Just one? Marin muttered. Your father's business partner, Aston, he's traditional. Very traditional. He'll fight this. Let him, I said, standing. I'm not here to make friends. Jacoby closed his notebook with a snap. No, you're here for revenge. I'm here to save the company. Are you? He moved closer, his voice low. Because everything about this screams, I told you so. The elaborate production, the dramatic transformations, you're not saving the company, you're proving a point. What's wrong with both? Paris interjected. Nothing, if she admits it. Jacoby's dark eyes held mine. But revenge and redemption are different melodies, Noelle. Which one are you really playing? Before I could answer, the door opened again. My father entered, followed by a silver-haired man I recognized as Aston. "What's all this?" Aston demanded, gesturing at our displays. "The future," Lara said firmly, "if you'll let it be." Dad surveyed the room, his expression unreadable. "Show me." We performed again, this time with Lara narrating the concept. I watched my father's face, searching for any hint of approval or disdain, but he remained frustratingly neutral. Aston didn't bother hiding his opinion. "This is ridiculous. We sell furniture, not concert tickets." "We're selling an experience," I countered. "Something unique, memorable." When was the last time anyone felt emotional about a coffee table? "This isn't some street performance." "No, it's better." I cut him off. "It's innovation. It's passion. It's everything this company has forgotten how to be." "Edward," Aston appealed to my father, "you can't seriously be considering this circus act." Dad walked to the piano, running his finger along its polished surface. "What do you really want, Noelle?" "What?" "From this. From us. What's your endgame?" The room fell silent. Paris squeezed my hand, while Jacoby leaned forward, pen poised. "I want to prove that different doesn't mean wrong," I said finally. "That sometimes the best way to honor tradition is to reinvent it." Dad nodded slowly. "And if I say no? Then you'll never know if I could have saved everything you built." He turned to Aston. "Give them the showroom, full creative control." "Edward?" "My daughter gets one chance to prove herself." His eyes met mine. "Don't make me regret this." After they left, Marin hugged me impulsively. "I can't believe that worked." "It hasn't worked yet," I reminded her. "We have 2 weeks to pull off a miracle." "About that," Lara said, pulling out her tablet. "I have some ideas for the multimedia aspects." As they discussed technical details, Jacoby pulled me aside. "You still haven't answered my question. Revenge or redemption?" I watched Paris demonstrating something to Marin, who was actually laughing. Watched Lara's excitement as she outlined marketing strategies. Felt the weight of my father's challenge in my chest. "Maybe," I said quietly. "They're the same song in different keys." He smiled, writing something in his notebook. "Now that's a story worth telling." "Everything's falling apart," Marin announced, bursting into the showroom during our final rehearsal. "Aston's been calling all the major investors, telling them not to come." I kept playing, letting the music drown out my rising panic. The transformed showroom around me was a testament to 2 weeks of sleepless nights and endless arguments. Interactive lighting systems pulsed in sync with my melody, casting elegant shadows across the furniture displays. "Let him try," Lara said, not looking up from her laptop. "I've already confirmed attendance from 3 major design magazines and a dozen social media influencers. We don't need his old money contacts." Paris adjusted a speaker, her purple hair catching the shifting lights. "Besides, once they see what we've created..." "If they see it," Aston's voice cut through the room. He stood in the doorway, my father beside him. "Edward, this is your last chance to stop this madness." Dad surveyed the room, taking in the elaborate setup. "It certainly is... different." "It's embarrassing," Aston spat. "Turning our flagship showroom into some sort of nightclub? This isn't what your father built." "No," I said, standing from the piano. "Grandfather built a company that understood its time. We're doing the same thing, just in a different era." "You know nothing about this business. I know enough to see it's dying." I walked toward them, my heels clicking against the marble floor. "When was the last time anyone under 40 got excited about your furniture?" "She has a point," Lara interjected. "Our market research shows..." "Market research?" Aston laughed. "Is that what you call this circus? These lights and sounds and whatever this is supposed to be?" "This," Paris said, stepping forward, "is called innovation. Maybe if you tried it sometime..." "Enough," Dad's quiet command silenced the room. He walked to the nearest display, where a handcrafted dining table stood bathed in shifting light. How does it work? I pressed a key on the piano, and the table's designated melody filled the air. A gentle, sophisticated tune that complemented its classic design. Motion sensors triggered subtle variations as Dad walked around it. Each piece tells its own story, I explained. The music changes based on how people interact with the furniture. It's not just about looking anymore. It's about experiencing. It's about gimmicks, Aston countered. It's about emotion. Jacoby's voice came from behind us. He'd been so quiet in his corner, I'd almost forgotten he was there. The same emotion that made people fall in love with these pieces in the first place. Dad touched the table's surface, listening to the musical response. And you really think this will work? No, I said honestly. I think it's either going to be brilliant or a complete disaster. But isn't that better than slowly fading away? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You sound like your mother. Edward, Aston warned, don't let her manipulate you with memories. Funny, I shot back. I thought that was your job. The tension crackled until Marin stepped between us. The gala starts in 6 hours. We either do this together or we don't do it at all. Dad straightened his tie. The decision's been made. We proceed as planned. Then I wash my hands of this. Aston headed for the door. When it fails, remember I warned you. After he left, the room exhaled collectively. Lara immediately jumped into action, directing the setup crew, while Paris returned to fine-tuning the sound system. He'll try to sabotage this, Marin warned. Let him try. I returned to the piano. We've got something he doesn't. What's that? Dad asked. Hope. I started playing again, letting the room's technology dance with my music. And really good acoustics. He watched me for a moment longer, then turned to leave. At the door, he paused. Noelle? Yes? Your mother would be proud. He cleared his throat. Of all of this. The words hit harder than I expected. By the time I looked up, he was gone. Jacoby appeared at my shoulder. You okay? Ask me after tonight. I glanced at his notebook. Writing the story of my triumph or my downfall? I'm writing about a woman who's either saving her family's legacy or burning it down in spectacular fashion. He smiled. Either way, it's a hell of a story. Places, everyone, Lara called out. Final run-through before we open the doors. As the team scattered to their positions, Paris squeezed my shoulder. Ready to make history? I looked around the transformed showroom, at Marin directing staff, at Lara coordinating with press, at the beautiful fusion of old and new that we'd created. Everything hinged on the next few hours. History, revenge, redemption, I said, cracking my knuckles over the keys. Let's make some music instead. The melody that filled the room was everything we'd worked for. Bold, beautiful, and impossible to ignore. Just like the truth we were about to prove. Or the legacy we were about to destroy. The gala was in full swing when everything went wrong. The power cut out mid-performance, plunging the showroom into darkness. My fingers froze on the piano keys as panicked murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, Aston's voice rang out, smug and clear. Perhaps this is a sign we should return to tradition. Don't move, Paris whispered in my ear. Lara's on it. The emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow across the faces of Paris's elite. Fashion editors clutched their champagne glasses while investors whispered among themselves. My father stood rigid near the entrance, his expression unreadable. I apologize for the technical difficulties, Aston continued, moving to the center of the room. As I was saying to our investors earlier, some things are better left unchanged. The lights blazed back to life, and with them, every musical element we'd programmed. The room filled with a cacophony of competing melodies as all the furniture pieces activated at once. Kill the sound, Marin shouted from somewhere behind me. No, I said, standing up. Everyone, please be quiet. To my surprise, the room fell silent, save for the chaotic music. I walked to the center of the showroom, feeling every eye on me. This is perfect, actually. I gestured to the discord around us. This is exactly what happens when we fear change so much that we sabotage it. Aston's face reddened. I don't know what you're implying. The power didn't just fail, Lara announced, emerging from the control room. Someone manually overrode our systems. Would you like to explain that, Aston? Before he could respond, I started playing a simple melody on a nearby piano, cutting through the chaos. One by one, the other musical elements fell into harmony, creating something unexpectedly beautiful. Sometimes discord is necessary, I said, continuing to play. Sometimes we need to break everything down to build something better. Isn't that what design is about? What music is about? What life is about? Paris joined in with her violin, weaving through the furniture displays. Each piece she passed responded to her presence, adding layers to our impromptu performance. My grandfather built this company on innovation, I continued, my voice carrying over the music. He saw a world changing after the war and adapted. Now we're facing different changes, but the principle is the same. The audience was transfixed. Even the social media influencers had lowered their phones, caught up in the moment. This isn't about destroying tradition. I locked eyes with my father. It's about honoring it by letting it evolve. The melody swelled as I poured everything into it. Years of rejection, months of planning, weeks of work, all crystallizing into this moment. Paris matched me note for note, our music dancing through the transformed showroom. Ridiculous, Aston scoffed, but a young woman in designer clothes shushed him. I'll take 2 of those dining sets, she announced, the ones that play that gorgeous minor key transition. Like a dam breaking, other voices joined in. Orders were placed, cards were exchanged, and Lara's tablet pinged continuously with press inquiries. Edward, Aston appealed to my father, you can't seriously. I think, Dad said slowly. You should leave, Aston. We'll discuss your resignation tomorrow. The room buzzed with excitement as Aston stormed out. I kept playing, but my father's approach made my fingers tremble slightly on the keys. Don't stop, he said softly. Your mother used to play like this. Like the music was a living thing. Dad, I was wrong. The words came out rough, unpracticed. About everything, the business, your music, you. The melody softened as Paris took over the main line, letting me turn to face him. I was wrong too, I admitted. This wasn't about revenge. Not really. Then what was it about? I gestured to the room, to Marin hugging Lara, to the excited crowds, to Paris's triumphant playing. About proving we can build something new without destroying what matters. He nodded, emotion finally cracking his composed facade. Would you consider coming back? Not to take over, but to help guide us forward. On your terms. On my terms, I repeated, turning back to the piano. That includes keeping my concerts at Le Petit Journal. I wouldn't expect anything less from a Montgomery. As if on cue, Paris launched into our finale piece, the one about butterflies and rain that had started everything. The one my father had once silenced. This time, he stood beside me as I played, watching the room come alive with music and light and possibility. Jacoby appeared with his notebook. Well, was it revenge or redemption? I smiled, my fingers dancing across the keys. Neither. It was a revolution. The music soared, and with it, everything we'd built from the ashes of what we'd broken. Sometimes I realized the sweetest victory isn't in proving someone wrong. It's in proving yourself right. Play it again, Dad said, standing in the doorway of the music room, my music room, in the Montgomery mansion. Aren't you tired of that piece yet? I asked, but my fingers were already finding the opening notes of the butterfly melody. It reminds me of your mother, he said, settling into the leather armchair we'd designed together, one that played soft jazz when you sat in it. And of how close I came to losing you too. Outside, camera flashes lit up the garden where Lara was directing a photo shoot for our latest collection. Paris's violin could be heard weaving through the furniture displays, recording musical signatures for each piece. Speaking of losing things, Maren burst in, waving her tablet. The London showroom just sold out of the musical vanity sets. Again. Already? I kept playing, adding a triumphant flourish to the bridge. That's the third time this month. People love the idea of furniture that responds to them. She grinned. The waiting list is getting ridiculous. Good thing we have that factory in Milan opening next week, Dad mused. Though I still think... No, Maren and I said together. You promised, I reminded him. No more 18-hour workdays, doctor's orders. He grumbled but settled deeper into the chair, letting its gentle music soothe him. The heart attack had been minor, but it had scared us all enough to force some changes. Jacoby appeared in the doorway, his ever-present notebook replaced by a magazine. Have you seen the article? Which one? Maren asked. The Forbes profile? The Design Awards coverage? No, this one. He tossed the magazine onto the piano. The headline read, The Montgomery Revolution. How one family's drama created a design renaissance. They make us sound like a soap opera, I complained, but kept reading. Well, you kind of are, Paris called from the hallway. Rich family, prodigal daughter, dramatic showdowns, near bankruptcy, triumphant comeback. It's very dynasty. Minus the shoulder pads, Maren added. Don't give Lara any ideas, I warned. She's already talking about a reality show. Now that would be interesting, Jacoby mused. The musical furniture moguls of... No, Dad and I said firmly. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, catching the crystal chandelier. Another piece that now played its own melody when the light hit it just right. Everything in the house had music now, turning the mansion into one giant instrument that responded to its inhabitants. Did you ever imagine this? Paris asked, joining us with her violin. When we were playing on street corners in Montmartre? Never, I admitted, transitioning into a new composition. Something about sunlight and second chances. I thought I was choosing between music and family. Turns out I just needed to make them harmonize. Speaking of harmony, Maren interrupted. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. They want to discuss expanding into hotels. Dad stood, straightening his tie. What do you think, Noelle? I played a challenging sequence, watching the room's lighting respond. I think we need to hear their pitch first. Innovation without purpose is just noise. He nodded approvingly. You sound like a proper businesswoman. No, I corrected, standing from the piano. I sound like an artist who learned to speak business. There's a difference. Jacoby closed his notebook with a familiar snap. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the real story here. Not the prodigal daughter's return, but the father who learned to listen and the daughter who learned to translate. Always the critic, Paris teased. Always the observer, he countered. Speaking of which, your concert tonight will not be turned into another furniture showcase, I finished. Some things stay separate. Balance, Dad said quietly. Your mother would be proud of that too. The word hung in the air like a perfect note. Balance. Between art and commerce, tradition and innovation, family and freedom. The very thing I'd been searching for all along. We should go. Maren checked her watch. The board's waiting. As everyone filed out, I lingered at the piano, playing those first few notes of the butterfly song. The room's systems responded automatically, creating a cascade of light and harmony. Coming? Dad asked from the doorway. Right behind you. I stood but paused to touch the piano keys one last time. Just remembering something. What's that? The little girl who used to sneak in here to compose. She thought she had to choose between her music and her family's approval. He walked back to me, placing a hand on my shoulder. And now, I gestured to the house around us, filled with music and light and possibility. Now she knows that sometimes the hardest songs are the ones most worth playing. Even if some people try to stop the music. Especially then. I linked my arm through his. Because here's what I learned in Paris. You can't stop music any more than you can stop progress. You can only choose whether to fight it or help conduct it. He squeezed my arm as we walked to the boardroom. Then let's go conduct. Behind us, the butterfly melody played softly, echoing through a house that had finally learned to sing.